Sound Art is a product that is a speaker and it's art. We combine it together and we call it Sound Art. What makes it so unique that any picture can be your speaker? Sound Art gives you the high quality sound without the ugly speaker. This isn't a picture with a speaker, the picture is the speaker. Just imagine your wedding picture uploaded onto a canvas and now it's speaking 10,000 tunes. I mean, it's a very cool concept. What we like so much about it that you can take anything that means something very special to you, upload it on the canvas, have it hanging up in your room, your balcony, wherever you want to put it, and now it's a speaker. I mean, how cool is that? It's something that we have that and no one has. No one has this product. It's just a great gift to give anybody. It's just a neat concept. Around here we say, art never sounded so good.
After months of quarantine, we're all interested in how we can become our best self. The team at Permanent Makeup and Cryo is here to help you get the flawless makeup look every day without the extra effort or time. When it comes to your appearance, you deserve the best care that money can buy.
14 races are done, 2 races remain. Popsicle sticks are in the air on the season for the Bluegrass iRacing Series, and no one sits prettier than Brandon Robertson. Does he salt the field away and stay on top, or do we see a surprise in the final seating for the Phoenix Championship round? Welcome, race fans, to the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. Noah Carmichael and Joe Donahue join me on the call this evening. We've got Trey Shuttlesworth, of course, on our social media duty. My name is Andrew Cardinale IV, and welcome to PitStop TV's coverage once more of the Bluegrass iRacing Series. As we know, you have many choices to meet your sim racing viewing needs. We thank you for choosing to spend your evening with us on our Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. We join you tonight from Stock Car Racing's home turf, but with a few twists and turns literally thrown into the mix. At this point, the course needs no more introduction as we're going Roval racing. 8 drivers center stage this evening with the last chance to race into the race for the championship and at Phoenix lying before them. The final test, if you will, for these drivers to pass if they want to be crowned champion of the Bluegrass iRacing Series. Noah, Joe, welcome back to the Bluegrass iRacing Series booth. In a weird twist, I actually got to talk with both of you last week at Talladega. It was a bit like an endurance racing broadcast where one of you covered the first half, the other covered the back half, but I think it was a great night overall, and it sets up for a great night here this evening as well. Coming into Charlotte this evening, these are our point standings. These are the 8 names in blue that are fighting for a chance to be the 4 in blue next week and have a shot at the championship. And Noah, things are getting tighter, but I feel like we're still talking about the same guys that are so deserving of a shot to race for a title.
Expect to see an old style format from before the chase where you're talking about the same guys every race, where the playoffs were built around to kind of give the upper edge to drivers who might not have had as many wins as compared to what you would call the big 3 or even big 4 at this point. But a lot of what you'd expect has happened. Drivers like Brandon Robertson, Matt Grenier, John Kinder, and Nathan Maurer, and so forth. All those drivers who we talked about for the entire season are in that top 8. And going into a race like the Roval, this is where you're going to see a lot of those big names be taken out of the equation for that final 4, because you have 8 very capable drivers that can win this championship, and only 4 of them get to fight next week in Phoenix. So it's going to be a very hectic night to see which of these drivers are going to move on to the final 4.
Yeah, I mean, we've had maybe 5-6 names that we've kept tabs on all season long, and obviously going to Phoenix, you can only bring 4 drivers, so obviously we're going to cut the list in half in blue, and there's only going to be 4 people going forward to try to win this Season 2 championship. So we're certainly looking at who is that big name that we're going to lose, or who are those big names we might lose out of the championship hunt here at the Roval. This is a very interesting and challenging course, so it really is going to take some skill to get up there.
And of course, Brandon Robertson has a massive cushion right now. 18 points the next competitor. He's looking almost like a lock to go to Phoenix with a chance to win the championship. It gets tighter, though, as you get down to Matt Grenier and Ryan Kendall. They still have some small cushions over guys like Nicholas Noggle, Casey Barlow, John Kinder, Wyatt Brackett, Nathan Maurer, all within the thick of things. In fact, from 4th through 8th, there's only 8 points separating those guys, an extra 5, bringing it up to 13 total between 3rd and 8th. Everything is so tight. It is going to be a very tight window, though, in order to make this field. We only have around 20 cars. Looks like we're actually going to have 18 so far that have checked in this evening. That is not a lot of room to work within, and it actually means that Brandon Robertson is all that safer. I think this 2 car is certainly a lock at this point. But we'll see how the evening goes. We'll see how the discussion changes, and we'll keep you guys updated as much as we can. Of course, mentioning this is the Roval at Charlotte Motor Speedway, a 2.28 mile, 3.67 kilometer course, utilizing just about all of the Charlotte Motor Speedway 1.5 mile quad oval that we've come to know and love, but now throwing a few things in. And this road course isn't necessarily new, but this iteration of it is, with its backstretch chicane and the front stretch chicane almost sitting directly across the track from one another. And of course, updated pavement throughout the infield. New pavement that I think gives this track a great quality. Right now, you're seeing Brandon Robertson work around what are turns 9 and 10, and we'll call them NASCAR 1 and 2 a bit this evening. Now into that backstretch chicane, turns 11 and 12. This will fire him off towards 13 and 14, or NASCAR 3 and 4. We'll talk a lot about this course this evening. Keep this image in mind as we go through the 55 laps these drivers have up ahead of them, and I think this is truly a great option for stock car racing. I love that Charlotte Motor Speedway has done this. A lot of people criticized it at first. I was even a bit skeptical, but it's honestly worked out so nicely, Noah.
Yeah, it's honestly been one of NASCAR's most exciting races that they've had all season long, and it was a very skeptical announcement when it was first decided that this was going to be the new road course, where a lot of fans were clamoring, saying tracks like Road Atlanta, Road America, or even Laguna Seca and so forth deserved racetracks before going to the Roval. But ever since that first race, it really zipped a lot of mouths shut, and it has become a hot ticket item for a lot of fans to want to go to, because I can't really think of one single race that has been hosted here, whether that was the Xfinity Series, the Cup Series, or even the IMSA WeatherTech Series when they came here, that wasn't a slobber knocker of a race. That was something that you had to watch just to believe what you could see. So it's honestly one of the best races of the season that has been a highlight, and I expect nothing less to happen here tonight as we decide the final 4 drivers are going to move on to fight for a title.
I think there's a lot of flow in this racetrack. Being a Roval track, you might have the instinct that maybe it's, maybe there's just a difference and a differentiation from when you're out on the oval part or whether you're in the road course. But I think there's a lot of flow in between turns 1 and 8, where you come in and out of the inside of the track, and then those 2 chicanes that Andrew mentioned earlier. I think there is a lot of really good qualities about this course, and they did a really great job setting up the Roval for these NASCARs. I think these cars run pretty well on road courses too. I think better than some generations of NASCARs in the past, even if I want to get a little iffy on that statement. But I think that these cars run really well on this track and road courses in general. So that sets them up really nicely to have a good course.
I definitely love this place. I love this option for these guys to have another road course out of their schedule, but it's not just a road course, it is a Roval, of course. And I think that term was used before just the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval, but they've certainly done well for themselves, kind of coining it as the Roval. I also love, Noah, that you use slobber knocker in there, making me feel like we're back at Summer Shootout with Steve Post. We have sometimes school bus slobber knockers on the front stretch on that Legends Oval, and it just fits that you said it here at Charlotte. Qualifying is done and dusted just about. We've got a few seconds left. It looks like a little over a minute here left in qualifying. Brandon Robertson leading the way. Let's actually bring up this scoring pylon on the left. Robertson leading things over John Kinder, Matt Grenier, Adam Lancaster, Casey Barlow, Wyatt Brackett. Those 6, not a surprise at all. They all have a chance, actually, sorry, minus Lancaster, to race into the championship race in 1 week's time at Phoenix Raceway. Bryce Hunter, he's out though. Ed Osborne, he didn't make it. Nathan Maurer, he's got a race for it. Noggle as well. Jack Bauer was eliminated last week. Then you get Dylan Butler, Nick Mills, Ryan Kendall. 5 seconds off of Brandon Robertson in qualifying. That is going to be tough to overcome. You have a few guys towards the bottom that didn't quite get a time in. I wonder if they might have clipped the sausage curbs here, the turtles. Maybe gave themselves off tracks by just being a little bit too far to the inside of these apexes that are so tough to hit and discounting their lap times. I will say, having run some laps with these guys last night, this setup is extremely tough. I expect a lot of mistakes out of a lot of these drivers, and it's certainly no fault of their own. This setup is really, really tough to drive. It's going to be really, really challenging for these guys with everything weighing on them. The last time they came and raced the Roval, this wasn't the picture. They didn't have this championship format. It was just go out there and accrue the most points that you can. Now we've got a playoff format, and it's really, really changed things up. And it's certainly going to be oh so challenging for these drivers with the championship on their minds, and of course the opportunity with which to fight for a championship or not weighing on all of them. That said, hey, it's time to look at our starting grid as you see them gridding up on the inside of that front stretch chicane. Let's take a look at our starting grid this evening. I'll walk you through the first 6. Brandon Robertson, he's on pole. John Kinder right to his outside. No surprise between those two. I'd say arguably the 2 best drivers all season long. Starting 3rd place, I'd say the 3rd best driver all season long, Matt Grenier. He will roll off third in the number 15 car. And then unfortunately, Adam Lancaster out of a chance to fight for a championship, but he can certainly go out there and do as Joshua Abbey did 1 week ago, play spoiler, grab himself a victory, and change things up. Row 3, we've got Casey Barlow, Wyatt Brackett. They've got an opportunity to fight into Phoenix, and they are going to have to be on their toes, Noah.
And starting back in position number 7, you're going to find the number 9 of Bryce Hunter, who was eliminated back early on at Bristol. Starting back in P number 8, the number 42 of Ed Osborne with a top 10 starting spot. Starting back in position number 9 is going to be your 8th seed coming into tonight, the 97 of Nathan Maurer, rounding out your top 10. Another championship contender, the driver of the number 08, Nicholas Noggle. And then rounding out your top 12, and the number 48 is going to be Jack Bauer, running a new Jimmy Johnson throwback. Really beautiful paint scheme. Alongside him is going to be number 38 of David Brackett.
You throw back one more row. You got the number 96 on the inside is Dylan Butler, and his outside will be the 46 Chevrolet of Nick Mills. Starting in 15th for tonight's race, you've got the number 68 of Ryan Kendall. We're definitely going to be watching to see if he can get that car up towards the front and try to get himself into that championship 4 at Phoenix. His outside will be 16th starting position Michael Prison. And then the final row on your field, unlucky number 13, driving on the inside, Brian Terry. And starting at the tail is the number 91 of Ryan Smith.
The field will pace through the Hammerhead section of the course for the first time this evening as one cohesive squad. 18 cars set to go racing for 55 laps. The stage will come out at the completion of lap 26 this evening. Make sure to watch for that. That will go miles as far as dictating who fights for a championship next week. And I think that's what these drivers have to consider. They've got to play the strategy for that stage. Where things shake out in the second stage, I think, is a little more concrete already. I think the cream will rise to the top in that one. But you've got to certainly fire out of the gates here and fire out quickly. I think this start will be the most hectic part of the evening. Once these guys have a start, once they have some more laps under their belts, I think things will calm down.
Yeah, honestly, this first lap is going to be just like how it kind of was at Talladega and a lot of other tracks like that. It's going to be very hectic because once this field gets spread out, you're kind of stuck in riding a rhythm pace of just trying to make it to the end of the first half of this race. So it's going to be very interesting to see which drivers are going to try and make the moves. I say the driver you're going to want to watch out for is going to be the number 68 of Ryan Kendall. He was the last driver that had set a time in position number 15. He's going to have to do a lot to catch up to anybody who's really fighting for that top 4 positions, because the next closest driver to him is the number 08 Nicholas Noggle, 5 positions ahead of him in P10. He's going to have a lot to do to try and catch up.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be watching Ryan Kendall off this one. I'm also going to be watching up at the front of the grid. I'm watching John Kinder and Matt Grenier. I think those guys are going to come into this race and definitely want to try to make some moves on Brandon Robertson early, because they are in the catbird seat to do so, and they know Brandon's going to come on strong, especially here at the start, to try to build a gap. So I'm watching the front end just as much as I'm watching the rear, getting ready to go racing here at Charlotte.
Again, 55 laps the distance. They do have one stage break to look forward to. I'd imagine we'll have some green flag stops in between each portion of this race, if you will. 18 cars lined up, ready to go green flag racing this evening. So happy to bring it to you here on PitStop TV. The Bluegrass iRacing series entering their 15th race out of 16 this evening. Through the final chicane on the course for the final time before going green flag racing. Brandon Robertson and company ready to go at it. We'll step away. We'll let you listen to the sights and sounds of Charlotte Motor Speedway as we're green flag racing already. John Kinder off with a great start. And you know what? We're going to cut in because Matt Grenier, big problems in turn number 1. I talked with you guys pre-race. I said this would be a big problem. I'm surprised no caution thrown for this, considering the track has been blocked. We've already got a very single-file field.
Yeah, that's really going to shake it up there, because now Casey Barlow has fallen way off, and now he's way back towards the tail end of the field after starting 5th. And with pretty much a big set of damage to the rear end of that car, he's going to have a really big hill to climb to try and move up, because he is one of those championship contenders, as now he tries to make his way around the 91 of Ryan Smith.
I remember the last time we came here, that number 15 car was one to watch the whole race long, and I was expecting Matt Grenier to try to make some moves at the beginning and maybe get some clean track in front of him, as he's got Michael Brisson a little loose in front, but gets it squared away, that number 71. That's a really tough break for Matt Grenier. He came into this race thinking he had a good chance at maybe getting a victory, or at least breaking through, and obviously he's got a steep hill to climb to get back up there, but it's the beginning of the race. There's plenty of time.
Out of NASCAR 4. I was going to say turn number 4. Out of NASCAR 4 for the first time this evening, John Kinder, the race leader. I expect this 21 to be very, very hard to pass this evening. We've seen these two come up to one another and battle a whole lot this season. Brandon Robertson with another opportunity to try and pass this 21 car. Unfortunately, John Kinder has not been able to nab that first win on the season just yet, but this could be a great opportunity to do so. Now living in nearby Mooresville, North Carolina, John, a little bit of a home race for him this evening, and he's certainly showing he's got some speed as he blinks a little bit there on the exit of the Hammerhead down to turn 5.
Yeah, very much of a home race for John Kinder. Not only that, but for the team as well, Vadon Lancaster, because both those guys sponsored by some local companies that are within the North Carolina, Charlotte area. So they have a lot on the line to try and perform well for their sponsors who supported them for the past 2 seasons. So they have a lot riding. And right now, with a 1-3 position right now, they're doing really well here in the opening lap. So those sponsors have got to be happy seeing this.
Yeah, but right for the moment, Brandon Robertson is sitting in there. Don't forget, he's in the Rims 1 Ghostface Brewing sandwich right now in that number 2 machine, and I'm watching to see if he's going to be staying behind John Kinder and just running out a couple laps here, or if he's going to try to be aggressive and get back past, maybe get a couple laps led. Jack Bauer in the Lowe's number 48 coming down the pit lane. Might have had some issues there, actually. Almost missed the exit. Yeah, almost put that car in the wall. You can see damage on the front of that car, only assuming that he was involved in the Matt Grenier incident to some degree from maybe getting involved with cars sitting still on the racetrack or whatnot. But back out on the race course and not too far ahead of your leaders might be lap traffic in super time.
Let's take a look back, actually, if we can, at what happened here with Matt Grenier and company. Certainly a very hectic start for the driver of the 15 out of Team New England. Oh, and you know what? It actually wasn't any fault of his own. There's going to be some contact to spark this one. And we'll take some more looks back at this, but Casey Barlow involved, and this looks like a classic move to the inside way, way too early in this race, especially for 2 guys trying to fight into the playoffs, or into the championship race.
Yeah, just again, a very aggressive move you're going to see here as they come through. Another interesting factor that isn't really how it is in real life, they take the chicane when coming to the green flag rather than take the tri-oval. So you're going to see the field very much jungled up there as they move on. You see Barlow trying to make that move to the inside. They'll take the dive down. Casey tries to make it work, and then just so happens that Grenier is going to come across the nose of the number 51 Chevrolet Camaro, and then just get on the binder, stop that car, and now we have a parking lot ensuing, and that has really jumbled up a lot of playoff contenders. But a driver who does really benefit from that is Ryan Kendall, because now he's running in a top 10 spot due to all of this.
Yeah, that definitely did help Ryan Kendall make up some time there, but as we watch this replay again, you're going to see that Matt Grenier just does not get the start he wants off the inside here. So we come out of this chicane, and the green comes out, and Casey Barlow gets a lot better start than Grenier did. Actually had to back it down to make sure he didn't get a penalty for passing before the stripe, but so Grenier's just had not the greatest of starts for this one, and Barlow tried to be a little aggressive, make some time up there on the inside of that car that was a little slower than him going into turn number 1, and unfortunately just kind of ran out of racing room right there between the 2 of them. Not the way that Matt Grenier wanted to start that race at all, but yeah, that was just not the best start in the world for him. Didn't get a lot of momentum off that one.
I gotta say, turn 1, lap 1, always a low percentage move. Unfortunately, it's gonna come back to bite a lot of cars. You see Casey Barlow here, Bryce Hunter, and so he's got a lot of nose and rear end damage. Then Matt Grenier now into turn 5 and 6. So these guys with a lot of damage back here. Ryan Kendall, he seems to have mostly gotten away. He's even got some damage, though. In fact, he's slow between these couple of corners. He's got Dylan Butler in an interesting paint scheme compared to normal. Oh, Ryan Kendall! Just as we're talking about him having some troubles back here, having some more troubles, and nosing into that wall between 6 and 7.
Yeah, you talked about it before the race, before we went live. This setup is very, very tough to handle, and from the looks of what you described and what these drivers are dealing with, it's almost like you're running in the rain and almost clear sky conditions. So these drivers have to be very careful when driving these cup cars, maneuvering around this circuit, because they are very much having to use every bit of the wheel to try and keep that nose point forward. You're going to see he's going to come around here, and even on a good setup, this corner is so easy to spin the tires on, and the way you want to do that is you kind of want to widen the exit of the corner out to the curves, like you saw about Dylan Butler did. He kept it all the way towards the wall, and then that just spun the tires, and into it he goes.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth there, Noah. I was going to mention turn 6, one of the hardest corners on this racetrack. So if you can get that turned down, you have your grips on the car, but that's an easy spot to get loose and lose control of that car. Off camber and over the crest of that hill, the car gets really loose underneath you, really, really light underneath you. And obviously when the car gets light like that, the amount of grip you have decreases significantly. And unfortunately that caught Ryan Kendall out that time. Just trying to get the grips on this machine and get it underway so he can start trekking back up through the field and make sure he can fight next week at Phoenix.
Take a look back at our race leaders. It's now lap 5 of 55. John Kinder with the race lead still over Brandon Robertson. And I think these two will be talking about them a whole lot this evening. What has surprised me is the fall here of Adam Lancaster. He's now 5, almost 6 seconds back of the race leaders. Nicholas Noggle has settled into 4th place, Wyatt Brackett into 5th. That doesn't really surprise me at all too much, and then things pretty calm through the rest of the top 10, although Casey Barlow and Bryce Hunter are pretty close. This is for 9th if Bryce can get there, and this would put Casey in a bit of a hole. He's really got to make sure he can maximize points this evening, but he's also got to be very, very careful defending as well. Braddock is a bit loose on the exit of the final chicane. I say they've got to be careful because look at this. It's already a very, very tough setup to work with. It's pretty warm. It's unseasonably warm for sure in March here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, but just warm in general. 93 track temp is a little bit north of where these drivers want it to be. It's a little bit toasty, a little bit greasy.
Yeah, it's even a little bit warmer than Florida condition as of right now. We're still dealing kind of in the mid-70s towards the 80s, but still that is a very warm March afternoon here in the Concord, Charlotte area, as these drivers are really going to have to be on their A game when trying to tackle this course, because as you see now, we're in that middle part of the long stage to the run towards that halfway break. So a lot of these drivers are going to have to do now is just keep their cars intact and mind their tires and try not to run those things off, because you're going to have to deal with that until that first green flag pit stop. And if you run through those tires and you're trying to hang on for the remainder of your first stint, you're going to be in a lot of trouble, and you're going to lose a lot of time trying to do that.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Noah. The tires are really crucial on a road course, and especially here at Charlotte, being able to keep control of your tires, not make any flat spots out of them, not wear them down too quickly. That just gives you an excess grip over the course of your run that you can use to stay at a reasonable speed up until you obviously come in and get fresh rubber and put some fuel in your car when you take a pit stop. But the people who run out those tires early, they're going to just fall to the back, and we will be able to see that before they come in for their pit stop cycles. So we'll just have to keep our eye out on that as we progress forward. But Andrew, maybe you could talk a little bit on your behalf, your experience with this car and this track. How do you do that? How do you keep those tires underneath you, and how do you make your run last so long?
One big thing is minimizing lockups. It's really easy to lock the front tires up under braking, especially coming up out of the banking in NASCAR 1 and 2 onto this flat backstretch. It's very easy to lock up the front tires, and you can see the car moving around a little bit there for Brandon Robertson. Wouldn't be surprised if he was dealing with a little bit of a combination of maybe a tiny bit of lockup as well as even some wheel hop, as the car is just so unsettled, and you've got to use the gears to slow you down. You've got to engine brake a little bit into the corner while also being very clear and crisp on those downshifts, very careful. It's just so tough, especially coming into these chicane braking zones. 2 of them back-to-back, only split up by those NASCAR corners. You're carrying a lot of speed. It's really tough on the tires if you do lock them up and if you do drag them. And it's a bit like prototype braking. I'm sure you guys have driven the prototype lately. In fact, I know you guys did at Daytona. If you lock up the front tires in a prototype, you can't just lift a little bit and get it to unlock. I know that's different braking systems. These are a bit more analog, those a bit more digital. But once the front tires are locked, even in these stock cars, on a road course, they don't like to unlock. And you're going to have to lift way off of the brake in order to get those front tires to roll again. It's going to be challenging, some lap traffic up ahead. This is going to get even more tough for these guys. And of course, planning the power down, you've got to be very, very careful with that as Brian Terry gets passed up by Jack Bauer. This is going to be tough for John Kinder to try and get the power down out of turn 8 without, well, there's the wall for Brandon Robertson, without spinning tires here up onto the oval. You can be a little bit quick if you do get in the throttle a little bit liberally, but you've got to be so careful because you can't do that for long.
Yeah, this is honestly the only part of the racetrack where these drivers are going to be flat out, because you're easing to the throttle throughout most of the interior part of the road course and all the turns, including this part right here. So it's mostly the oval where they're going to be absolutely full throttle, trying to mash the gas and get as much speed as they can. But you talked about the brake lockup just to save tires, but in all honesty, the number one thing that's going to ruin your race is the wheel hop. You talked about how hard it is when you lock the brakes. Well, when you get the wheels hopping, it is almost impossible to really get the car woed down enough to where you can get it back under braking without losing either enough time or just losing the entire corner itself. Because I've been in that situation enough, especially in this track, in that backstretch chicane. If you get in the wheel hop, your chances of making that corner are almost done. You have a better chance of keeping the car in one piece if you just cut straight through it and take the time penalty. So these drivers have a lot on their hands when trying to tackle this course, not only with a setup that kind of gives them a little bit of off handling, but also just a racetrack that's tough to tame on its own in a stock car of all things.
Yeah, you mentioned that wheel hop. That's a pretty unique scenario and a unique issue to deal with when you're driving a car on a road course. And the stock cars do that more than a lot of other machines, but you definitely have to be careful with it as you run through and avoid the wheel hop in the rear tires or even, in the front tires. I think this track is especially one that you would have to watch out for that, because when you go through that middle part of the track, it's a pretty smooth track. Like Andrew mentioned at the top of the broadcast, it was pre-paved when they scanned this course, but there's still some ups and downs. There's still some bumps, and really easy to lose grip on those tires when you go through those parts of the track. So those are going to be parts to watch out for. But over the course of your run, this whole ordeal is just, be safe with the tires, be smart with the tires, don't wheel hop, don't hold them up. And as you see, there's Brisson letting these guys through on the outside. So respectful move for him. He goes a lap down, but lets the leaders through safely. And hopefully they just can keep a hold of those tires and keep a hold of their cars and not get into anything too crazy.
The other thing that's going to separate this field is the ability to use all of the racetrack, but also know where the bad bumps are. I was telling you guys a little while ago about a bad bump on the exit of turn 1, and then, Brandon Robertson actually using a bit more of the racetrack than I really meant. You want to use all the racetrack. You want to take a wide arc into most of these corners and a wide arc back out after you hit the apex nice and cleanly. Like Robertson's doing it here. He's widening the racetrack all the way out to the curbing there between 5 and 6 and coming back into that inside wall to get that nice apex. Just using the racetrack, running the racing line, and then being very ginger on the throttle. You can hear Robertson doing, he was doing that, and they gave it a little too much to the car sideways. And if you make a habit out of that, it's really going to come back to bite you. Even if you slip one of these tires once, it could really impact the rest of your run. Of course, the three of us, I think, know just how tough these tires are to work with. Noah, I know you race. I'm sure Joe does as well. These tires on these NASCAR stock cars lately are so tough to work with, so tough to save. But if you can just take things easy tonight, it's going to pay off.
Yeah, this track is just, and top to bottom is a tough circuit to navigate around. So these drivers are going to have a lot of fun trying to just get these cars to move around this racetrack without spinning the tires or spinning out in general. Because what we're seeing out of Brandon Robertson, he's really doing a good job of closing the gap to John Kinder. He's been doing it lap after lap where he's been backing up his corners going into each one. He's been taking those wide angles, but he's also backing up the next corner, and that's allowing him to get a better runoff and really close the gap down to John Kinder. But his number one Achilles heel in all of this is that exit back onto the oval turn 1. He just is struggling to get the power down to keep the momentum up with John Kinder, and that ruins everything he worked for, because he's having to chase it all back down again on the next lap as now you look on board with Nicholas Nagel, possibly looking to take away a third position, which would do him a lot of good in trying to make that round of 4 as he clips the curb and a little bit of the wall, almost having a little bit of damage there. But he right now is knocking on the door of possible podium position here in the early goings.
Yeah, so we're 20% of the way into this race, 11 laps down. Nicholas Nagel now making a battle for third for us to enjoy here on the screen. He caught up to Adam Lancaster here, and he's trying to chase that Ford Mustang down as they run down the back straightaway, and they will go into the backstretch chicane again. Nick Nagel has the advantage in the braking zones. Well, I would say he closed that gap up a little bit. A little aggressive on the curves, trying to get through there as smoothly and straight as possible. And back out on the banking again, you see the momentum that Adam Lancaster carried out of that chicane and got a little bit of a gap between himself and Nagel, but they come back around to the front stretch chicane and Nagel's going to close it back in a little bit. Oh, actually going to close it in a lot there on the entry.
You know what? That looks like an aggressive line from Nagel. If you're going to be one of the guys that breaks a little bit later into the corner, that's how you have to do it. I noticed last night, if you stay too far to the left to get an arc into the final chicane, that's the one corner where it comes back to bite you. It's so hard to get the front of this car to turn. You can see we're running low downforce. That means a very small splitter on the front, very small spoiler on the back. That's why these guys have these problems with just struggling for grip as Nagel a bit wide in the hammerhead. If you don't kind of start leaning to the right into that chicane, you will find it very, very tough to actually turn into that corner. So either you've got to back the corner way up, or you kind of drive it in a bit more straight, and you're able to brake, I think, a little bit later, which is so, I think, backwards compared to what we're probably used to, the three of us, and probably a lot of you guys watching. It's a bit backwards to think you can drive it in straighter, braking later. But it actually works, oddly enough. Again, this setup is very, very weird. It's very tough for these guys to drive on, and a lot of that comes down to the car. Very low downforce. It's a challenge. 12 laps in, just about here out of 55 for the Bluegrass iRacing Series at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. Laps just ticking away. We're almost halfway through stage number 1. I want to mention, of course, these broadcasts, well, these Bluegrass iRacing Series races brought to you by Rims One. Azu, a pit stop here from Adam Lancaster. This is early, but it actually matches right up with Brandon Robertson, so it actually is about where these guys want to pit. It's almost halfway, like I mentioned, so this makes sense. You can see the Rims 1 logo on the side of the 28 car. Of course, our broadcast brought to you by these fellows here, Tucson Sound Art, Race Pay Setups, Permanent Makeup in Cryo in Maine, and Whiplash Media. Halfway here in the stage, this makes sense.
Yeah, as you see right there, Brandon Robertson also coming down, as well as Casey Barlow. So this right here is going to be the first round of pit stops where it begins. Is now Brandon Robertson going to try and perform what we call an undercut, where you're going to try and catch the 21 off guard, come into pit road early, and make Kinder have to decide when he comes in, because as where it stands right now, he is going to be losing time to Robertson when he gets up to speed, and he's about to right now with where he's at. So right now, John Kinder, all he can do is respond to the call made by Brandon Robertson and hope that it works out, because now what Brandon in that number 2 is going to do is push the ever-loving heck out of that number 2 Camaro and try and gain as much time as he can on his out lap while Kinder is trying to work on his in lap.
Yeah, so while Kinder's working on the in-lap with older tires, Brandon Robertson's got the fresher rubber that he can push a little bit further and go a little bit faster. One thing that I was going to mention as John Kinder brings it down into the pit lane is that those guys are going to be the leaders, so this is going to start the cycle. Everybody's going to start following in and taking pit stops now that we've got a couple who took the liberty of being the leaders and the first to come down the pit lane. John Kinder bringing his Rims 1 Ghostface Brewing number 21 machine down through to his pit stall 2. We'll look back further as the rest of the field comes through. We'll see who else brings it in this time, or maybe goes a lap further, trying to go a little off strategy from the guys who just pitted, and these guys here, Ryan Kendall, brings it in this time in the 68 machine.
So pit stop's fully underway, and this is going to go a long ways, I think, into deciding, obviously, who wins stage number 1. I don't think you're necessarily wrong there, Noah, saying that Robertson will likely push a little bit these first couple of laps out. But you also want to bring these tires up to temp conservatively. You don't want to slide these tires too much. You've got to be careful in that regard as well. You don't want to abuse them too much. If you wear things off, obviously if you just mismanage your tires, you'll have a bit of a problem. I say that, and of course Brandon Robertson has cleared John Kinder, and I think that's just a massive I guess, benefit from coming in that lap early. I'm not so sure that's going to come back to catch Brandon Robertson. I think that is a stage-winning move. He's just got to make sure he manages his tires from here, or he's not going to get that stage win. He's going to fall into the clutches pretty quickly of John Kinder if he isn't careful.
Well, one of the things I've also meant was when he said trying to push it on exit, it's just mostly through those first few corners to get the car up to speed as fast as you can. You don't have to run it as aggressive as you can, like how Kinder is. He's going to make dive bomb and force Ed Osborne to go wide, entering the backstretch chicane. But you see right there, he performed the undercut to perfection. Not only did he clear the number 21 of John Kinder, he put up a pretty sizable margin between the two. So he has a pretty big comfort now for the rest of this stage, as Nagel now making the dive down to pit road. So that will promote these drivers back to the 1-2 position, as now we're going to see where Nagel filters out. But right now, Robertson and the Cadbury seem to have a very good finish with the way this is going.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, that undercut did work well. I wonder, though, as this stage progresses, maybe is Brandon Robertson using those tires up a little bit more than John Kinder when he gets off of, say, turn 8 and he's a little bit squirrely, or is he going to be able to hold on to those tires long enough to keep John behind him? We'll see what John can do, because John was obviously the leader coming in, so he was kind of setting the pace on that way through and being pretty patient with his tires as Jack Bauer gets out of the way. Those two shaping up for a battle at the front end of this field right now. I'm curious if Brandon Robertson's going to be able to keep those tires underneath him, especially considering he came in a lap sooner. Maybe by the end of this stage, John Kinder gives him something to work with, but at the time being, he's actually doing it right now as they come down to the entrance to the backstretch out of Speedway Turn 2. We've got a battle for the race lead.
And Kinder, late on the brakes, he's going to go for the move. This is very aggressive out of John Kinder. It's going to give Robertson the advantage at the center of the corner, but he goes over the turtles, and that's going to cost Brandon Robertson. John Kinder going to walk away with the stage lead out of that one. Oh, man, and that's so tough if you're Brandon Robertson. Of course, you want to make sure you turn back to the right pretty quickly there, but he cut it just a little bit too close, clips those turtles, slows himself down. I'm not sure that he gave himself a penalty out of that. Of course, if you cut the corner a bit too tightly, iRacing will hand you that time cut penalty. Let's take a look back from Robertson's point of view. This is going to be a tough one for Brandon.
Yeah, it's going to be a very bitter pill to swallow now, because as you're going to see on the replay here, you see Kinder make the dive bomb. It's going to force him to go wide. He also just kind of missed the corner as well. So he slams it into those sausage curbs, and then is just trying to hang on to it without slamming into the door of the number 21, and he ends up losing a lot of time. So basically now the roles have been reversed, as now Kinder again having a pretty sizable margin, while Robertson going to try and play catch up and maybe exact some revenge on number 21, because I don't think he's going to be too happy with that move with how early it is in this race.
Yeah, and it just looked like Brandon was just trying to give him a little bit more racing room into that turn, or through the middle of that corner, through those chicanes, to try to avoid contact with Kinder. Obviously, they're up at the front end of the field, and Brandon Robertson's looking pretty good. He's sitting pretty up at the top end of the leaderboard to get to Phoenix, so he does not want to have to deal with a incident that puts him at the tail of the field and puts his chances to go to Phoenix in question. So that's definitely a good move on his part, to just be a little bit conservative with that, because you knew John Kinder was coming on strong, but a tough break for him nonetheless to lose that time and lose that spot for the moment. But, you know, there's plenty of race left, and he can still end up at the top end of the leaderboard. You just got to keep chugging along.
Scored as the 96, visually the 6 car this evening is Dylan Butler. He's been very fast through the latter portions of this season. He is yet to pit. He is one of only 3 drivers, it looks like, that have not come down the pit lane just yet. Very interesting strategies from some of these guys. Ed Osborne's still on the racetrack. I'm going to be honest, I'm not so sure why you'd still be on the racetrack on this set of tires, but they must have thought something through. They must have done something in testing and learned something, possibly taking no tires or just one side of tires. I'm not sure. We'll wait and see. But Ed Osborne's still on the racetrack. Brian Terry as well. And actually, he's going to come down now and finally pit after running, it looks like, 15 laps. Keep in mind, Brian Terry 1 lap down, so it's 1 less for him as he comes around to complete his lap number 16. John Kinder now, once again, the race later, and he's opening up a gap to Brandon Robertson. This gap is growing, and I don't know if it's going to stop growing. It seems like John has this place figured out, and I want to mention, of course, he's got real road racing experience. I think he's just got this place on lock right now.
Another thing to keep in mind as well is when Robertson hit those sausage curves, he added a little bit of damage to now he has that splitter crinkled up there on the right front, and as well as the quarter panel has taken a little bit of damage as well. Not really enough, I would say, to cause a performance issue, but that's obviously going to be some optional repair time as he again hit really aggressive hitting the curbs. Now on the driver's side, now maybe trying to make it perfect rather than hitting a pace car, because he wants to be perfect out there. So he's just going to try and wheel this thing around. He is closing the gap a little bit. He's been really strong in the interior section of the circuit, but it's going back onto the oval where he really bites the bullet and cannot get something done. Because you can see right there, he's really closing down the gap to number 21, but I'm calling it right now. More than likely when he comes back onto the oval, he's going to lose it all again, as now I believe that was Adam Lancaster I saw, or somebody behind. Looked like maybe Nicholas Nagel actually, or somebody closing the gap in, but right now these two still just running away with it, as actually it's a 19-second gap to 3rd place.
Yeah, and another thing worth mentioning here is the difference between the situations Robertson and Kinder are sitting in. John Kinder is sitting in 6th place coming into this race, so obviously he's outside that top 4. He's got, a 6-point gap to Nick Nagel coming into this race, so he wants to get those bonus points at the end of the stage, which we are getting closer and closer to as we continue on here. And for John, somebody who's won stages the whole way through this season, been able to get those 10 bonus points at the middle point of races week in and week out, that has progressed him so far into this championship, and he knows how important those points are. We talk about it behind the scenes here at PitStop TV. Those points are just so crucial to getting cars through. I mean, John Kinder used stage points to make it forward in some of these rounds of the playoffs. So that kind of has gotten him where he is now, and he knows how important that is. So he's on the charge for that, and as opposed to obviously Brandon Robertson, who, like I mentioned, sitting pretty up at the top of the leaderboard at the moment, just has to be consistent.
Yeah, I mean, John Kinder, I think this is best case scenario for him. He's racing a guy that doesn't need to win, doesn't need to jeopardize his evening. All Brandon Robertson has to do is go out there and at least collect some stage points, and I think as long as he does so, he's got this. I mean, he's got, again, 18 points back to Matt Grenier. That makes him relatively safe no matter what happens. Not locked in, not quite, but certainly relatively safe. It's going to be tough for anybody to knock him off of his pedestal this evening and to knock him out of Phoenix. Some battles kind of brewing further back. Most of the field very spaced out. The Nicholas Noggle is somewhat still close to, at least still in the same zip code as Adam Lancaster. It looks like these two maybe separated a little bit during the pit cycle. Lancaster pitted a little bit sooner than Noggle. Noggle now on some pressure tires later. I'm just not so sure that's going to help you much this evening. Once these tires get hot and slick, they're hot and slick, and they're just hard to drive regardless. So unless you're a god with saving tires, I just don't know that playing the long game is really going to help you.
Added on to that as well, Nicholas Noggle, we know him as really one of the more aggressive drivers in Bluegrass, so I really don't expect him to be a guy who's going to be out here saving tires. He's kind of a guy who, when he goes 100%, he goes 100%, and he doesn't do 99 at all. And that kind of seems to be what his mindset maybe right now is. He's going to send it in deep and more likely smash both of these curves as he tries to get the run up the front stretch back to turn number 1. So I don't really expect him to really back off the pace as much. He has closed down the gap now to about 3 seconds when it was closer to 4. So he is keeping either it stagnant or is closing in, but he's putting himself in a pretty good position where he came in on points to make it to the next round if he can keep this pace going.
Yeah, I gotta say I'm pretty surprised. I'm happily surprised to see Noggle keep in control of this car. Like you said, Noah, very aggressive driver here in this series. We know that, and for Noggle to be keeping control of this car on a road course, I think a road course is one of, if not the toughest disciplines to be aggressive and still be competitive in and not make a mistake. So props to Nick Noggle that he's got control of this car right now. And I mean, he's sitting good right now. If he finished in 4th place in this race, he'd be in that championship 4. So certainly that would be a good setup for him. I think he's going to have a very good chance to race well at Phoenix and contend for the race win there, maybe even the championship if he can move it forward in this round. I think the track's going to suit his style a little better than maybe a road course would, off of what you assume. But for the time being, he's running pretty well there in 4th place. You're looking at Nick Mills slid through the bus stop chicane on the backstretch and gets it up and away, stays out of the way of 3rd and 4th place.
This might be a bit more than just sliding. It looks like he's going to end up spinning out towards the back end of the corner. But he's got no front end on this race car. He's already driving a modified, and you wonder if that came from a wall or if it came from hopping one of these sausage curbs, because that does impact your car quite a bit. This is Nick Mills through the backstretch chicane, and he does actually just get in the power a bit too early and just kind of loop it around here. Ends up going for a bit of a spin. That's what we saw that smoke from. And that updated tire smoke from iRacing looking beautiful. I'm going to give a shout out to iRacing on that one. I'm actually really impressed with the tire smoke post update on Tuesday. Trying to look back and see if we can't find where Nick Mills might have lost the nose of his car. So give us one more moment here as we try and search for this moment. I'm not so sure I'll be able to find it all that easily. We are searching, and I mean, this is, here we go. This might contain it here in the next minute. This is Nick Mills multiple minutes ago at this point, and we'll see what happens.
You see him really struggling as the car just bouncing on that splitter as he makes his way through Sector 1, now coming up to the Hammerhead portion of the circuit. He goes wide, not there yet. So I'm really questioning where this might be. It might be our best bet is going to be coming up. Maybe he might have spun it out going through the dipper section of the course coming up. But regardless, that's a lot of damage to have for a single car spin.
Yeah, and that's a tough break for Nick Mills. He's had some really good shining moments this season, and like last season, I think was a learning curve for Nick, as well as some of the way through this season. He's been learning the ways of this series and this car and being able to be competitive in it He gets out of the way of John Kinder right here, the race leader, stays to the low side of the racetrack. And I think this is just another instance of him getting this car figured out and getting it working in this series. He's had some moments where he's gotten into those top 10s and has done really well this season, but had some ups and downs. And moving forward, he's definitely going to want to learn from what's been going on and then be able to get up towards the front of the field a little bit better, be more competitive with his car.
We're still watching here for the number 46 to see what happens. I wonder if it happens here in this final chicane. I wonder if he just gets in a little bit aggressively and clips one of these sausage curbs, clips one of these turtles, and just knocks the front end off of his race car. No! Wow, okay. So he does clip the curbing, but it actually shoots him straight up out of the final corner, up out of turn 17, and he nails the outside wall down the front stretch to take that front end of his car away. So now we know what happened to Nick Mills, as Brandon Robertson's still piling the pressure on. Now going to be 4 laps to go in this stage, and we've got a race, boys.
Yeah, he took a very late approach going into that final chicane, and it paid off as Kinder got a little bit slippery on the front straightaway. And now we're going to go side by side going into Hammerhead, and it's going to be a question of who's going to break first, because I don't think either of these two are really going to give each other an inch, especially after that move on the backstretch chicane. Now that Robertson knows how Kinder's going to race for this, and he might be able to pull it off the long way, as now we still have a drag race going up towards Redneck Hill.
I was thinking John Kinder wouldn't back out of this. I'm surprised. They've gone so far side by side now. I think it might get figured out here in the turn. No, not in turn 6, but turn 7, they get it back single file. Brandon Robertson still has plenty of momentum and opportunity to, dive it in on the exit of turn 8 right there. John Kinder's going to be able to drive away from him there as they kind of get those cars back under control as they come back out onto the banking. But that was a dive and a half out of that number 2 car in turn 8.
And I think that was really just kind of spawned, if you will, by the 21 being easy. John Kinder trying to be easy on those rear tires. It's so important as Robertson catches that turtle curb. He's got to be careful. If he blows a motor now by getting some damage over those sausage curbs, he's going to have a rough time and may not actually make the final round of these Bluegrass iRacing Series playoffs. I think Brandon Robertson, you're in such an amazing position, especially if you collect these these 9 points here to make it 27 to Matt Grenier. You're in such a great place, and actually now gets a chance as Kinder just messes up that final chicane once more. The back side by side, almost contact. Oh man, and he's gonna hit that wall in between 1 and 2. These guys are getting scrappy. I think it's just way too early to do this. If this is for the race win, that's fine, Noah, but this is just a bit too early for the stage win. These two both got to keep it easy. They're both racing for so much. Robertson is safe, but if he just stays safer here as they come through the Redneck roller coaster, I think he's going to be a whole lot safer and just about locked in.
Yeah, and the thing I was going to bring up was the idea that he would have a lot more points to rely on going to Phoenix, but again, he really can't because the points reset after tonight for the Final Four, so he really doesn't really have much to lose because, like we said, he is pretty much guaranteed to make it into the next round unless he has a fatal mistake, which I believe, I'm going to look back on last year's race that we had here. I believe it was him or Kinder. Someone, like you said,
Kinder grenaded their motor. It was a money shift into the chicane.
Yep, I remember that exactly, when Kinder grenaded the engine, and that almost pretty much solidified that he was out of the chances for a championship, where he was barely hanging on by a thread between Travis Miller and Justin Winters in the final few races of the season. And right now, Kinder now finding himself in the race lead, now going after trying to defend from a hard-charging Brandon Robertson, who has just been nailing that final chicane on the front stretch, and that has really been the saving grace for him to have a shot at the win. But I honestly believe now the number 2's tires are now gone. He's going to have to try and hang on to this car to the finish, as he's going to look very loose exiting turn number 2 now towards Hammerhead.
Yeah, I think that Brandon Robertson really should keep control of this car. Obviously, take the opportunities if you can get them. But like we mentioned, I mean, he's doing pretty well up at the top end of the leaderboard, but he's not secured. 9 points at the stage break would definitely do a lot of good for him. I think it actually would guarantee him in with the difference to points. It might not be perfectly securing him in to Phoenix, but it would be a lot better chances of him making it if he held on to those 9 points. And maybe 10 is better. Winning that stage is cooler, but you got to be safe when you're trying to make a pass on John Kinder. John's going to be aggressive, not want to let you pass. John's going for every point he can, because at the moment he's still sitting on the outside of the board as we get around the lap car of Brian Terry. Down the inside, they both go. coming back around.
Oh,
to the
no!
Oh,
Brandon
There goes-
Robertson finally has exactly what I think John Kinder wants. Not what Brandon Robertson needs at all. This isn't going to take him out of a chance for the championship, I don't think. But this is going to be a bit of a stain on this race. He comes up to pass Brian Terry. And oh my gosh, Brandon Robertson just being a little bit aggressive, just trying to give a little bit extra room to Brian Terry is going to cost him here. We'll take another look back at it. This is the number 2 car, the yellow number 2 that we've known to grow in love over the course of this season. Just hopping those sausage curbs to the inside. Looks like he catches the rear end housing on it and just goes for a ride on exit. There it is.
Yeah, that back tire just having a little bit of a hop off the turtle curve, and then that just sent him into the tire barrier. It's not hard enough to really cause any damage to worry, but that is going to be a huge stain on this race now, as he's still holding on to second, but now he is within grasp kind of Nicholas Nagel, as now we have just about 1 lap left here in the stage. So if there's one more mistake made by the number 2 car, the 808 car has a chance to go after a second place spot, which would really help him in his fight for this final 4th spot.
Yeah, but as we come back around onto the banking, time is running out for that to happen. I think Brandon's going to be smart about getting to the finish now, as he made that pretty major mistake, and he's going to learn from that aggression as we move forward into the backstretch final chicane. Once more, John Kinder has a very secured run to get this stage victory. Just has to get through a few more corners, and he'll get those 10 bonus points. Very crucial for him running this championship and moving forward to Phoenix.
John Kinder off and away by some 12.5 seconds is going to come around to collect the Stage 1 victory at the Roval here in the Bluegrass iRacing Series. Make that 10 points for John. I think this might move him close, if not into, the Final 4 as they run. Back through the rest of the top 10, though, Casey Barlow, he was bearing down a Wyatt Brackett. Looks like we're going to throw the caution before the rest of the field comes through. So that is stage number 1. These are your top 10.
Yeah, and as you look through there, you're seeing a lot of the championship contenders within there. Kinder obviously getting the win, Robertson 2nd, Nagel 3rd, Wyatt Brackett is going to get 5th, Tracy Barlow 6th, Matt Grenier rebounds for a 7th, Nathan Maurer in 9th, and it looks like the only driver that is in that top 8 to have not gotten any stage points is number 68 of Ryan Kendall, and that honestly could be the nail in the coffin that knocks him out of this lead, out of this round of 8.
Yeah, I think those 10, the point difference that you get from those bonus points is pretty crucial. I think Ryan should be okay with some of those guys, maybe like Grenier and Maurer, that didn't get a whole ton of stage points right now, but that certainly is a deficit to him. And a lot of his competitors right at the top of the leaderboard got a significant amount of points, especially if you look at John Kinder, Nick Nagel. Those guys getting all those points, and obviously Kendall not getting any, very big difference right there for him. So the whole field going to get bunched up, squared away, figured out. We'll get some pit stops here on the stage break. We're halfway into this final race before we go to the final race of the season, this being the penultimate round of the championship. John Kinder took that win. Brandon Robertson, Nick Nagel round out that top 3.
And boys, looking at points as they run, which we're not able to throw on the screen for you, unfortunately, but we are able to look at independently here on our other monitors. Boy, this is best case scenario for some great action in here in stage number 2. Nathan Maurer still sits quite a ways out of things, Wyatt Brackett with him. But we have a 3-way tie at the cut line. Brandon Robertson, of course, he's got plenty of points. He is locked into Phoenix next week. In fact, he's got, it looks like, 34 points to Ryan Kendall right now. He's easily off and away. He was already locked in by starting this race, I do believe. We were just unsure of exact totals, and we can say Brandon Robertson will go to Phoenix with a chance to make it. I think that's why we saw him turning up the wick for these 10 points here in stage number 1 rather. Matt Grenier, he sits with a 10-point gap. That's 10 spots on the racetrack. Now, there are some bonuses available for leading a lap, and I believe that might be it. It might just be leading. No, it's leading, winning, and most laps led. You get a bonus point for each. Grenier could grab himself a lap led at some point, maybe during the kind of pit cycle, and try and get himself an extra point. That is an option. In fact, I want to say Nagel did that already. So Nagel actually puts himself an extra point ahead of this 3-way tie, as Nagel sits in 3rd, now with 3 points to that 3-way tie between, guess who? We've got Ryan Kendall, who I'm going to be honest, looks like he didn't get enough practice in this week compared to these other guys. I mean, hey, we all have lives to lead, and it looks like these guys might have just had extra time to be able to put in. They've got more practice, and Ryan Kendall is having some troubles this evening. He comes in as a part of that three-way tie. Another part of that three-way tie is Casey Barlow, tied at 2,102 points. The other member of that tie, race leader John Kinder, who just got himself a stage win. Boys, this is looking great. We're going to have a whole lot to talk about this evening, the rest of this race. This is going to be fantastic, and I think John Kinder, it's his race. It's his race to lose. It's his championship for to miss.
Yeah, sadly, that is basically the story of how his season's been so far. I mean, how many weeks in a row now have we looked at Kinder and called him the odds-on favorite to win the race with the pace that he sets, then have something happen that knocks him out of a chance for the win? It ends up ruining his race and his points run entirely. It really started all the way back at Loudon, and even then it went back to races like Richmond and Martinsville, races that he was in contention to win, and then just gets taken out by something ruining his night. So it really is Kinder's race to lose. But one of the things I asked going into this, jokingly, was asking, well, how is Kinder going to lose it here tonight? Because right now he has led a majority of the race, but we still have over 20 laps of this event still to go, and there's still a lot on the line to the side. So there's a very lot of ways that Kinder could lose this race again.
Yeah, I mean, that's the unfortunate truth of how this season has gone for John Kinder. We've seen him at the front end of the field so many times that something's gone wrong, crashes that he wasn't a part of the beginnings of, and just strategy moves and things like that, incidents on the track that have just taken him out of contention these last couple of weeks. And so he's got his car in good spot. He's put in the practice. He knows what he's doing here out on the track, which is pretty standard for John Kinder. Obviously a really great driver in this series, but yeah, like Noah said, I mean, there's anything can go wrong, and it has been going wrong for John Kinder in the late stages of these last couple of races. So hopefully that trend stops today. Maybe John Kinder can finally break through for his first win of the season.
And that is the number 21 car of John Kinder winning stage number 1 this evening. Let's bring him in. Let's talk to him. John, I'll actually inform you live here if you want. Do you want to know the points real quick?
Sure.
You sit in a three-way tie, buddy. You sit with the best opportunity you've had in a long time to really surprise a lot of faces. You sit tied currently with Ryan Kendall and Casey Barlow. Now, this is obviously unofficially, but those 10 points are really doing you a whole lot of service. How did you get this stage win?
Well, I knew I needed the points. I mean, winning you're in, but I needed the points just as a backup. And Brandon and I, we were racing pretty hard. That was pretty fun. But I really wanted those stage points.
It's going to be all the difference. We've talked about it for a few weeks now. I think since seeing the effect of them at Bristol, just how big of a difference maker those stage points are. So certainly capitalizing, I think maybe Brandon Robertson just trying to do the same thing, or even make it just a little bit difficult on you. And hey, you know what? I'd say you guys are the two best drivers in this series all season long. It might not be a bad play for him to go out there and just kind of mess with you. How are you going to try and control that from your point of view?
Just go race my race. Can't control what other cars do, so you just go out there and run my race. See what happens.
Hey, fair enough. You've certainly got this place unlocked. 26 laps led through 28 laps completed. You've got something going right here for you and the Rims 1 Ghostface Brewing Machine. Let's tell us a little bit extra about these sponsors this evening as well on that car.
Yeah, anybody can go on to Rims 1, go online and order any truck accessories or wheels and tires. Deliver them right to you. So check them out. And if you're ever in Mooresville, you got to check out Ghostface Brewery. Great food, great beer. It's a great time.
Absolutely, and easily a home race for you and a good bit of your team. I know Adam and Ronnie from nearby Mooresville as well. And, I mean, the sponsor's on your car. It's a home race for you guys. So the home for stock car racing, the home for you guys as well. How are you going to go out there and grab this win?
We're just going to drive as hard as we can and just see if we can't bring one home.
There you go. John Kinder just going to drive as hard as he can and give it his all. John, I'm sure at this point we'll be talking to you here on this top 3, but I won't jinx anything. I'll tell you what. We'll knock on wood real quick. Don't want to jinx it for you. Got a great run going, and bring it home.
All right, I appreciate you guys.
That is John Kinder leading the way, and I'd expect him to lead a whole lot more this way it's just it's feeling like a John Kinder kind of day. It's been a whole long time since he's done it here in the Bluegrass iRacing series. A lot of close calls. In fact, Atlanta comes to mind as far as one of the closest calls we've ever seen in this league. I don't know. Something just feels different today.
He really do be built different coming in here tonight. This has really been one of his best showings since Loudon, where he's just been on a dominant performance, having this track figured out. So if there's really any chance of him having the best shot of winning a race, it would be here tonight at the Roval, because he has this place on lock, which I bet he would love, not only for the fact that this is a hometown race for him, hometown race for his team, hometown race for the people on that car, but also would be redemption for how he lost this a year ago and how that affected his championship, and how fitting would it be that a track that took him out of a chance for a championship a year ago would be the track that locks him into the next round of 4 going into Phoenix.
That's a great point, Noah, right there. Obviously, John Kinder didn't have the strongest showing, and that money shift really did cost him last season, but he's got a really good chance right now, and the car's working underneath him. Brandon Robertson's been showing his nose a little bit, so that number 2 car isn't out of contention yet. We've got a whole slew of drivers behind him looking to get bad fast here on this late stages of the race tonight and see if they can stick their nose up into that top spot as well. My dad threw it in the comments section at the beginning of this race. We are rockin' Rovalin tonight here at Charlotte. So we've got these guys lined up, ready to get back on that rockin' Roval. And when they come back past the stripe again, we'll go back to green flag for stage number 2.
And let's take a look quickly at the other 2 parties of this 3-way tie. Well, here's one of them. Casey Barlow, he's going to line up 5th place just like he did on the start of the race. Only difference is he's not behind Matt Grenier. He's now alongside of Matt Grenier. We'll see how that changes for his restart. And then no longer 1 lap down by virtue of the wave around is Ryan Kendall, but he's on old tires. This is really going to hurt the 68 car. I think just a little bit behind the 8 ball this evening. He's got to turn things around the rest of this race. It's lap 30. Coming to lap 31 of 55, we've got a chance to do things over again. Stage number 2 coming to you as soon as they exit this front stretch chicane. John Kinder, Brandon Robertson, the race leaders. John Kinder just won stage 1. Let's do it all over again. John Kinder still leading the way up onto the oval once more. It's lap 31 now. He's got a growing gap to Brandon Robertson, but into that braking zone, this is where the 2 cars been so good. Watch him close back in.
Yeah, talk about rocket and roll, and rocket and roll McRoval going on right now is Robertson again, really late on the brakes. Now Grenier back up to 3rd. He's going to try and get some redemption after his mistake at the first lap of the race. Casey Barlow as well. You talk about that 3-way tie. Casey Barlow made it in after that incredible win at Martinsville, weaving through the carnage, and that's something he knows how to do well, is just either survive it to the end of the race or make his way up to the field and redeem himself, and that's what he's doing right now. He's going to get late on the brakes, having to really try and avoid that number 38 machine of David Brackett, as now they make the run, or I mean the 33 of Wyatt Brackett, another championship contender, as now they make their way back into turn number 1. So Casey Barlow going to try and charge his way through and get as many points as he can to try and boost his way to be one of possible 2 drivers that can make their way to that 3-way tie.
Yeah, and he has definitely, it looks like he has figured that car out and gotten it under control tonight. But this guy, Matt Grenier, now, Matt Grenier didn't really have to figure this car out. He just had to rebound from that start he had, which definitely was not the way he wanted it to go. But he's sitting in 3rd place right now. He's got a little bit of a gap in between himself and his teammate in front of him, Brandon Robertson, for the moment. But Matt's been on a charge throughout stage 1 to get further up in the field. Obviously took the advantage of that stage and pit cycle to get a little bit further up in the grid. So for the time being, Matt Grenier sits in the 3rd spot. We'll see him having worked his way all the way back up to that spot. Could be watching that 15 car to make a little bit more progress as this stage progresses.
Into the backstretch chicane, the second lap running since they restarted things. have quickly calmed out. I think things very orderly so far. Nicholas Noggle working on the 51 of Casey Barlow, this for 5th place. And this is one of the closer battles we have on the racetrack that just might change over the course of this run. Remember, these guys all have to pit between now and the end of this race. They've got just over 20 laps to figure out when they want to come in and just how they want to approach the rest of this race. Looking over at points, Nicholas Noggle, he's got 3 points to the good right now, but he's got to stay on it because that 1 point right now behind Casey Barlow, the one position rather, is 1 point. And that's just making it all that much tighter. If Adam Lancaster goes on by, that takes another point away. These guys all have to be careful. They've all got to be on their A game. And if you're Wyatt Brackett, you're in the 4th position, Noah. He's coming into the 2nd stage, it looks like, in the 7th position, 5 points behind the cutoff line. So he's got to get things rolling.
Yeah, and also just to keep in mind as well with the Nicholas Noggle, he also has to watch out, like you said, John Kinder, one of the guys in that 3-way tie, could really affect his run. So Nicholas Noggle, he finished 3rd in the stage, which really helped him get a little bit of a breathing room to make the next round. But with where he stands right now, he's in a very troubled spot. He needs to try and get as many positions as he can. With running an 8th, that's not going to cut it because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 playoff contenders in front of you, and about 2 or 3 of them could easily knock you out at lap 55. So he has really got to pick up the pace if he wants to make it into that next round with how competitive these guys are.
This is absolutely the embodiment of the cream rising to the top here. We mentioned it at the beginning of the broadcast. Stage 1 kind of runs through its ways, and by the end of it, those points get shuffled out. But when it gets time to crunch time, it gets down to the ending of this race. We're getting close to only 20 laps to the end of the event. The cream starts rising to the top. The guys who start really having control of their cars make those passes, get up towards the front, and that's what's starting to happen, especially with all those guys in the championship and still competing to go to Phoenix in the championship 4. Very interesting mashup of guys up at the top end of the leaderboard. Obviously, the top 7 includes a ton. Actually, the top 7 includes all drivers who, top 6 rather, all drivers who are in the running for that. So these positions that they want to get, I mean, their single points here is, Casey Barlow puts his nose right up on the tail of this rear view cam that we have. But any points that you can get by passing a driver, I mean, you pass the guy in front of you, say Casey Barlow passes Wyatt Brackett right now, that's 1 point gain for him and 1 point lost for Brackett. So obviously these guys are all racing each other really tight at the front end of the field, and any position counts. They definitely want to get that rolling, especially with how close that battle is without that 3-way tie for the cutoff.
And things are getting spicy behind them as Noggle's under fire from Lancaster. This is going to change things up in this little gaggle of race cars. Adam Lancaster, there's no messing around from this 28. He's no longer a part of this championship field, and he doesn't care. He wants to go out there. He wants to get all the positions, all the points he can. He's still racing to try and finish 5th in this championship. He was eliminated in that first round that came to a close at Bristol. In fact, all of these rounds, only one race long. We had Bristol, then Talladega, now the Roval. Lancaster just wants to go out there and punish this field. He wants to go by them, and he wants to grab some points for himself. You're looking at these 3 championship competitors possibly, though. 2 of them, I think, based on the points so far, will be eliminated from the looks of things. Wyatt Brackett currently sitting on the outside, and, well, Barlow is now sitting on the outside by a few points to John Kinder. So that tie, of course, that's broken up as soon as they go green for stage number 2, and John Kinder with the easy advantage. Wyatt Brackett now even further back out, and Nicholas Noggle trying to hang on to everything he can.
Yeah, really all he can do now is just hold on and hope for the best. What he really needs is to hope that those 2 cars in front of him wreck and give him as many points as they can. And you talked about Adam Lancaster running back there around behind, trying to do whatever he can to get around that number 08. Another thing to keep in mind as well is the thing about Nicholas Noggle to keep in mind that this whole season and also the past 2 seasons is Noggle has really found a way to really get on the bad side of almost every driver in this league. While he's an aggressive driver and he's incredible to watch, he has found himself in feuds with quite a few drivers, particularly with John Kinder. So I would not be surprised if Adam Lancaster will have nothing more to get around him to try and not only help his teammate with that tiebreaker that's going on, not with the fact that he's in the lead that obviously boosts him even further, but to maybe boot Noggle a little bit further back. That would also be pretty good for him, as Casey Barlow is actually going to move out of the way and let Noggle go on by.
Problems for Casey Barlow. I dare say that's a time penalty, Joe.
Interesting for Casey Barlow. Tough break for him to have to whoa up and let those guys go. I mean, this is just going to eat away at him, that he has to let them go and has to give up that time, but still can see them in front. And Luckily for him, it looks like he didn't have too much time to give up right there, so he's still within grasp of them. But definitely getting shuffled out to the tail of that group is going to hurt him. Like I had mentioned, like we've mentioned already, Casey Barlow, right at this moment, looking in from the outside, at least with that tie going on, he needs to get points. He needs to finish in front of these guys, and he's close enough in the points that he can maybe crack the top 4 by the end of this race if he was in front of all of them, but that time penalty definitely going to take him out of contention for that right now. He's going to have to get the charging on and try to get back up with those guys.
Side by side, down the backstretch, here go Brackett and Noggle. Noggle on the offensive, Brackett on the defensive. We saw this earlier with race leaders Kinder and Robertson. Oh, big issue for Wyatt Brackett. Completely blows the corner and is going to impact the 08 most notably. That might go the way of Brackett as he fights to get back up onto the oval. Noggle is going to have to give that time up. This is going to be tough.
Yeah, he really doesn't want to get a time up because now he has all 3 of those drivers on right behind him. Here comes Lancaster, now going to make the dive bomb to the inside, going into that final corner. Noggle going to go wide. He's going to lose a ton of time. We're going to hold up Brackett and Barlow on behind. They're going to get right on the bumper and move right on by, as now Noggle going to have to try and chase down Lancaster, but now with having both Brackett and Barlow behind him, that's going to help him in that championship fight as Brackett not happy with Noggle. He has that target on the back bumper, and he is going to use it as he's going to send him packing going in to Hammerhead, trying to catch up to Lancaster. And yeah, remember, not only has he now have history with Brackett, but I want to rewind this a little bit back to the first playoff race at Bristol and that car in front of him. Adam Lancaster, who we remember dominated that race straight up, had that race locked in and could have won it to make it to the next round. But what took him out of the race and ended up eliminating him from the playoffs was a contact with the race lead with that man right there, Nicholas Noggle. So a little bit of a feud between those two, and now it could be coming back to bite him, as now he has to try and get past him again to hope to make it to the next round.
There were some problems there for Nick Mills while we were talking there, but yeah, absolutely. Making good relationships with the drivers out on track is going to get you some respect out on the course that you might need at a time like this. And obviously, we saw Wyatt Brackett hit the bullseye there and give a little bit of a nudge to Nicholas Noggle in turn 2 there. So definitely showing what the relationship is between these drivers. And I know personally it's a great thing to have respect between drivers, and I always try to make sure that is something that I put focus on when I'm driving my car. And hey, props to Nick Noggle. He wants to come out here and win races just as bad as anybody else. But for the time being, you got to be careful with that kind of thing. And Wyatt Brackett. Yeah, Brackett overshot turn 1 right there a little bit. Gets a little bit of the wall. We
got a big incident. Maurer in trouble. Big one in turn 1. I saw Osborne and some others were starting to mix things up, and something in the back here has gone awry. This is Nathan Maurer that is, I think, behind all of this. Let's look at his onboard and see what happens. Nick Mills slow, and one car just went off, and that was David Brackett, and Maurer just followed.
Yeah, it looked like Nathan Maurer was trying to go around the lap car, Nick Mills around the long way, and being that far out of the groove, entering turn number 1, that's really going to hurt your chances of making that corner, and he didn't. And it might have been the same issue that happened possibly for David Brackett, because that really messed up his corner there, and now he's got to try and chase it back down, and then just loses it going to turn 1. But that is a very, very tough blow for the 97, who needed a lot to try and hope to make that next round, and that hit right there is almost certainly going to not only possibly knock him out of a chance for a championship if he doesn't get a caution, but could effectively end this race for him.
Yeah, Maurer was the guy on the outside. We hadn't really talked a lot about him. He wasn't rifling up there with the rest of the guys in the top 10, but he was running in the top 10, and obviously he ran up into that wall. He's still sitting in 10th place for the moment. That's a really tough break for him. For David Brackett, I think it's easier to see him overshoot that corner, and he was trying to make it, but then obviously got a lockup, and it ended up putting him in the wall there. Nathan Maurer, a little bit slower on entry, but still way out of the groove, and just couldn't get control of that car quick enough to get it slowed down and make that turn. Really tough stuff for Nathan Maurer. He was on an uphill battle to even catch up to the guys he's racing with in the championship at all, so definitely tough for that Simbox Chevy.
We've got another replay coming to you momentarily. This is Wyatt Brackett with problems down the front stretch, and once more, this is turn 1, a problem spot for these drivers. Now, I talked to you guys pre-race, and I didn't think turn 1 would be all that difficult. I certainly understand it for Maurer going around Mills, who was slow at the apex of the corner. This is a different problem for Wyatt Brackett. I think just overcooks, maybe a little bit too much rear bias, slides hard into that Tums heartburn turn wall, gives that spot up to the 42 of Ed Osborne, and I mean that's it for Wyatt Brackett. He loses a couple of more points, loses a couple of more positions on the racetrack, and it's going to be all that more difficult for him to advance out of Charlotte with a chance at the championship. John Kinder still leads, and by a healthy margin now over Matt Grenier, because Brandon Robertson down the pit lane.
Robertson coming down for what could be the final pit stop of the race. We saw him perform that undercut to try and get around Kinder, which ended up biting him in the butt later in the end of stage one, ended up costing him a lot of track time, but ended up keeping on that second spot. So he's going to try to perform the undercut again and hopefully be able to keep that 21 at bay as he takes his 4E Goodyear Eagles now down on the way, hard on the throttle. He's going to exit pit lane, and now all eyes are going to be on the number 21 Rims 1 Ford Mustang to see how he responds and if he can possibly have a better pit or better in lap compared to what he had the last time they tried this.
Yeah, certainly going to be watching to see if it's more of the same or if John Kinder learns a little bit of a lesson out of what happened in stage one. Very interesting to cut it so quickly and come down to the pit lane. I mean, we had 15 laps out on track, and that's going to be a long stint on those tires for Brandon Robertson. Maybe if there's a yellow or something, he could get that squared away a little bit, but in the meantime, that's going to be a tough run to the finish for him. And if he gets that undercut, maybe he can stick it out in front of John Kinder and keep it in front, at least, as John Kinder is going to come in for fresh rubber and some fuel to get that number 21 to the finish of this race. I think by the end of this run, out with the tires that Brandon Robertson has now just put on that car, it's going to be interesting to see how well he can hold true with that number 2 machine.
This is important for Matt Grenier. He stays out, and he's going to collect the bonus point for leading a lap. I think at this point, that's very smart out of Matt. Grab that bonus point and give yourself one position's worth of insurance, basically, over the rest of the field. John Kinder, we saw him come into the pit lane. Nicholas Noggle stays out. He might be going for the same thing, although I think he already led a lap. No, he was not credited with that lap led. So this could be extremely important for Nicholas Noggle, who comes in with only a couple of points to that gap. This could be for all the marbles here for the 08 car. This could be one of the biggest moments of his season. If he is able to get a lap led under this pit cycle, this could be so important going into Phoenix in 1 week time.
Yeah, absolutely. That bonus point is really crucial for him. To be able to get that point, obviously, he's sitting better, not great, but better than some of the other guys on the track. It's such a close battle right now for the cutoff right now. Those guys running with those points, 1 point in between the drivers, even tied. So definitely Nick Noggle will try to hopefully be able to get the chance to get a bonus point, which would definitely help him right now with all these guys so bunched up and close together. We're watching Matt Grenier, race leader for the time being. He might come in this time to get service. No, he's going to stay out this time. So Matt Grenier going to lead another lap here as Nick Noggle in second place. We'll watch and see if the 08 follows or pulls down the pit lane. He is going to follow. So those two guys are going to stay out and run a little bit longer on these tires, which I think might be an okay strategy. Obviously, by the end of the 15 laps running to the end for Brandon Robertson, 14 for John Kinder, as now we see Wyatt Brackett coming down and relinquishing his track position to get a pit stop in. I think they'll have a little bit better cars at the end of the race. Maybe that will help them have a chance to run them down, get up into the front, maybe even win this race.
Wyatt Brackett down the pit lane, worth noting. Brandon Robertson has overtaken John Kinder via the pit stop once more, and the gap is looking like about 2 seconds. This is going to be tough for John Kinder to overcome to get this race victory. That said, he's now led the most laps of anybody in this race. He's got that locked up for himself with 37 laps led, and that's enough to, even before points have figured in for their finishing position, put him above that three-way tie and officially puts him in, well, unofficially rather, puts him into 4th place so far and will put him into the championship 4. This is huge. This is huge for John Kinder. He's suddenly got a great opportunity to stay within this championship fight and help himself out. I also want to mention, hey, Matt Grenier may be very, very cognizant of the fact that Noggle needs to lead a lap right here. He may be trying to stay out to hurt his competitor. I think that's an option.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's out here to try to get himself into the top 4. He's out here to get himself into the championship, not Nick Noggle. So if he could pull that strategy, maybe hold Nick Noggle back or maybe offset Noggle's strategy, it would benefit him and give him just a better chance to make it into that round. I mean, obviously if he can keep Noggle in position to do a poor job, trying to get forward. You can do that and get those points taken away from you.
That is now a lap led for Nicholas Noggle, so hey, that point out the window. Well, actually, in the pocket of Nicholas Noggle, if you want to be literal with that point, but certainly big for Nicholas Noggle. That could be all the difference, and we'll even figure it in here for Grenier. And yeah, I mean, that just helps Nicholas Noggle out so much to make sure he's got that extra point. It's only one position on the racetrack, but when it comes down to it, each one of these points matters, and it's huge. Matt Grenier, he's out of the pit lane now, and it looks like he's in 6th position. He's in behind Casey Barlow, and this is going to be a very exciting battle, I'd say. And we're just going to have to wait and see how these tires kind of equalize between each of these different drivers, see how things settle out. And quite honestly, wait for Nicholas Noggle's pit stop, who he's only 2 seconds ahead of race leader Brandon Robertson. This is going to be tough for Brandon as the run goes on. Or sorry, for Nicholas Noggle.
Yeah, I mean, he stayed out so long and let Brandon Robertson catch up over time. And obviously that's going to be a huge break for Brandon Robertson. As you can see, Nick Noggle now going to come down the pit lane, so he's going to relinquish that spot. And Brandon Robertson rather goes right around him on his outside and stays out there. Will be the race leader once again, John Kinder, about a second behind him. Nick Noggle going to come down, and we will see if Noggle can come out in a reasonable position right now, or if that longer run is going to hurt him as they progress forward.
So Noggle in the pit lane, Robertson's still leading, and that gap is actually narrowing a little bit, Joe. Time's starting to dwindle between Kinder and Robertson. Kinder certainly on the offensive. Here's that gap ahead. It was recently down under 2 seconds. It's gone up a little bit since then, but I've been keeping an eye on it, on my time against scoring personally, and this could give us a great battle for the race lead once more. We've seen some amazing battles from these two already this evening. As the tires wear, as the tensions rise, this is going to get a whole lot better.
Yeah, well, I think John Kinder should be able to get a little bit more out of this car as we progress forward for the time being. And I mean, we're watching the time on the screen right here. Fortunately for everybody watching, we've got our timing and scoring up on the screen. You can track John Kinder's performance versus Brandon Robertson and how close he can get the 21 car to Brandon. Coming in a lap later gets him a little bit more rubber to get to the finish of this race. And obviously we're coming up on having about 10 laps left in this event. So John, I mean, sitting good right now. A second place finish would do pretty good for him getting into the final 4 next time at Phoenix. But Brandon Robertson with a win, obviously Brandon secured himself in, and with that, so stage points, so he is good to go, but he can take those points away from Kinder and whatnot. It's just, kind of secures his motivation and secures his momentum going into Phoenix next time.
As we work lap 45 of 55, almost 10 laps to go. Let's remind everybody, these broadcasts brought to you by Tucson Sound Art. Your picture or your music. Use promo code PitStop TV to get 10% off of your wall-mounted sound art device today. Go to TucsonSoundArt.com to make your purchase. These broadcasts also brought to you by Race Pace Setups. Use that Discord link at the bottom right of your screen to join their Discord server and use their donation-based setup shop, driver development service, coaching service, all in one. Again, donation-driven. That means rather you don't have to pay an arm and a leg to get a little bit of help on the roadside of iRacing. This could be ever important for some of these guys that maybe want to check into some more road racing, particularly open setup races. These are the guys you go to. Race Pace Setup Shop. They will get you taken care of. They're also working closely with FTR Esports to start putting on some amazing events throughout 2021. Check them out, again, at that Discord link at the bottom right, and, hey, give them a holler. Also, these broadcasts brought to you by Permanent Makeup and Cryo in Maine, where you deserve the best care that money can buy, and they will give it to you as well. Ashley and Evan Bollier and their team of specialists will take care of you, get you in and out the door as quickly as they can, but also looking as beautiful as you can at the end. They will certainly take care of all of your permanent makeup needs with locations in Auburn, Lewiston, and Harrison, Maine. They will get you taken care of. I highly recommend these guys. And it's not just permanent makeup. Don't let that word deter you maybe if you're up in that area. The cryotherapy option it's huge, and especially going into the summer months, these guys might be where you want to look. Of course, these broadcasts also brought to you literally by Whiplash Media, our official graphic and camera provider. the gap narrowing for third and fourth positions, even fifth, because Casey Barlow is suddenly on these two. Matt Grenier all over Adam Lancaster.
Yeah, now you're looking at Matt Grenier trying to close it in as best he can to get on Matt Grenier. Obviously, second seed coming into this. He's more likely going to keep that coming out, but he wants every position that he can to try and have a better chance, even though the points reset. But still, you want to race for whatever you can get your hands on. Same for Casey Barlow running in fifth. Sadly, I fell out for a little bit. Gotta love Spectrum for giving me, subpar, but that's 2 Wednesdays in a row that I've had internet issues. But regardless, we're back, and I come back, and Brandon Robertson now leading the race.
Ooh, Adam Lancaster
going dirt tracking, trying to do a Lightning McQueen impression down on the grass, but he's going to lose a ton of spots into that.
That was not ideal at all for Adam Lancaster. We'll catch a replay here, and you can see him go down and dirty in the grass here. That was not what he needed at all, but it does help Matt Grenier move forward a little bit here. So we're watching from above. Adam Lancaster comes down the back stretch here and into the bus stop chicane, gets it slowed down, nothing out of the ordinary quite yet. Hits the curb, on exit, getting back on the throttle, up onto the banking again, and the banking just seems to catch him out maybe a little bit too low, maybe on that throttle too much. Got the control of the car at least before spinning out, but a bit of dirt on that grill now.
Hey, no harm, no foul, just lost a little bit of time, and he's no longer in it for the championship, so it really is not that big of a hit, I think, overall to Adam Lancaster. This is a couple of spots, but still putting together a really solid run for that 2018. We were talking a little bit earlier, as we're now inside of 10 laps to go, we were talking a little bit earlier about corner names here at Charlotte for the Roval. I don't know if you guys noticed, I coined a new one a little bit. We'll get there momentarily. I can't think of what to name the chicanes, though, as we see them rolling through the front stretch chicane. The back stretch chicane, front stretch chicane, they work, but I feel like we could use a little more spice. If you're out there watching on Facebook or YouTube especially, let us know in the chat, even on Twitch, let us know in the chat, maybe some corner name ideas. I like the Hammerhead here for turns 3 and 4. I think IMSA coined that term, IMSA Radio rather, coined that term back in October. I was calling this section up here though, 5, 6, and 7, I was calling all of this collectively the Redneck Roller Coaster, and I think that works. You're going up some steep elevation change, right back down, right back up. There's some compression here in 7 and up to turn 8. I think that is fitting to call that all the Redneck Roller Coaster.
I was looking more towards naming the curve part where the divot comes back up, Rolling Thunder. I thought that would have been a name. I think Redneck Hill would have been a perfect name for just the hillside.
Well, and see, combining those, again, the Redneck Roller Coaster, because you are going up over Redneck Hill, I think it works.
I mean, yeah, it works. It works. I'm not denying that. I think Rolling Thunder is a good idea too, but obviously the Redneck Roller Coaster works. For the chicanes, really, there's nothing really like in mind of a fancy name besides like the bus stop, but obviously Watkins Glen takes that name. What about just naming it Keith? Just name it Keith. Just give us something basic so that we remember it. Because you can name it like
Chicane face.
That's too basic. We already got like Bushy McBush face for the Kansas race coming up.
Hey, we're just trying to get something under the waist here. I do like the idea of calling that back chicane a bus stop. I mean, it follows the same idea as Watkins Glen with the in and out sections with a turn in, and then obviously the 2 turns going through and turn back out. But I really like the roller coaster idea because, that Redneck Roller Coaster over there, that is such a flowy part of the track. I mean, and especially for the drivers, if you mess it up coming in, or you get out of rhythm a little bit coming into where you see John Kinder entering right now, up to where Brandon Robertson is, over the crest of the hill, it just keeps on adding on to the amount of time you're going to lose if you don't keep that car under control. And I think, to have the flow of a roller coaster, that seems to suit that spot very well.
Yeah, it's also something that I've noticed in, I think, a lot of American courses where you get a complex that's named a certain way. It's obviously reflected in European circuits as well, but I don't know, it seems pretty relatively common. Maybe I'm kind of just losing it, going off my mind here as we come up to 6 laps to go momentarily, but that just feels like it fits for an American circuit. Obviously, I think NASCAR 1, 2, 3, and 4 work decently well for the oval corners. I'm not sure you can really name the oval corners. We're going to start coming up to Coke 600 broadcast or something like that with names for each end of the racetrack. I'm not sure that necessarily works. But hey, if you've got names for these chicanes, not that it'll be official or anything for Charlotte Motor Speedway, but we might start using them And I think if we can start using them, somebody else might start using them, maybe these names will stick one day. One name that has kind of stuck, you can see that cut through that was in the background as they come up out of turn number 2, head straight at us into turn 3. We'll see it again on the onboard here, and I'll illustrate this if I can in a moment with my words. The Bojangles drive-thru. Now there's that kind of Circle K station in this infield bit with the Bojangles as well, and Bojangles is a big thing in North Carolina. If you go straight ahead, right there, it's just this cut through, and at least for Winter Heat with Legends Nation TV, we've called that the Bojangles drive-thru with good reason. Again, there's Bojangles logos all over the place, obviously, but also it really does feel like a drive-thru. It's this chute, we've got a wall on one side, a Bojangles on the other. I think it works. And obviously not being used for this course, but when the Bandoleros are around that little road course in the winter, it works really nicely. And if we can't call that the Redneck Roller Coaster, that's my vote. We call turn 7 the Bojangles drive-thru.
I think that works as well. I was thinking maybe calling the straight that kind of nestles around it after Hammerhead coming up towards Redneck Hill, calling it the Bojangles straight. Just an idea for that. The chicanes, though, I'm really having a hard time trying to get names for these. The only thing I have for that last one might be wheel hop turn or corner or something like that, because of the fact of how many times we see drivers slam into those curbs. But yeah, I think if anything, you call this the Bojangles drive-thru, the exit up towards turn 1 all the way up to turn 2, just because of the fact of how narrow it is with the walls on both sides, unless you want to call it like bowling alley or something like that.
You know, bowling alley's not too bad. I'm sitting here trying to think of something, something creative in my mind that we could call some of these corners, but honestly, I'm far and away distracted by the idea of having me a good Cajun filet biscuit from Bojangles right now. What you've done is you've made me hungry, Andrew, and for that I'm jealous of you being down in that area that you could go grab one. Obviously, up north there aren't any Bojangles, especially in Indiana. There's one back in Pennsylvania, an hour away from where I live normally with my family, and definitely looking forward to my next gracious experience with the Cajun filet biscuit, especially after this one. Now we've talked about Bojangles so long, I don't even have sweet tea to drink on.
Watching one of our playoff drivers currently maybe working himself through Bo's Bend, turn 2. Call that Bo's Bend if we can't call anything. That. If we can't call anything the Bojangles drive-thru or anything like that, I think turn 2 could be Bo's Bend. Then out of the Hammerhead, and I'm not really sure what to call this straightaway, but into the Redneck Roller Coaster is Nathan Maurer. He sits on the outside, and I just don't think this evening is going to be anything to move him on to Phoenix, unfortunately. We were looking briefly at guys like Wyatt Brackett. He is looking close. Unfortunately, it looks like he's going to be out after this one. Wait for the points tally after the fact. We'll try and stay on air until we have that. Nicholas Noggle, it's looking like he might stay through, but it's going to be tough with Casey Barlow, who is 2 spots ahead of him. This is going to complicate things right on that cut line, because according to my numbers, Noggle is sitting either 3rd or 4th, with Kinder in the other position, be it 3rd or 4th, and Casey Barlow, possibly 5th place. It's going to be very, very tight, and I really look forward to seeing how these points shake out. Up front, things still pretty calm. We watched this through most of our little track naming portion. As we come around to 3 laps to go this next time by, I just don't know if it's enough for John Kinder to get up there and get his first win. I mean, this is going to be tough if Kinder has to settle for another 2nd place.
Yeah, obviously that would be a really tough pill to swallow, having to take another 2nd place finish, because the fact of how sick he is of probably having to take those. It's kind of the same way that Justin Winters had it last season, where he was fighting for that championship and had to deal with a ton of 2nd place finishes to really just Travis Miller and Brandon Robertson, who he was fighting with all throughout the season. So that's obviously not what he wants to do, but like I said, if he could get the undercut pulled off, then it was basically just Brandon Robertson trying to hold on to it as you look on board Nicholas Noggle coming to the backstretch chicane. And I had an idea for this. Going back to the whole naming corners, what if we called the backstretch chicane the minefield because of all the curves that are around it? The fact you have all the curves on the inside, or if you hit those, you're going to go launching clear over the bus stop, and then if you hit one of the 2 on the inside, you're going to go straight for the tire barriers.
That seems like a suiting name there, Noah. Obviously, you hit those sausage curves. If you're too aggressive on them, you're going to get that car airborne. You're going to look like a Fiat supercar up over those corners. They like to be aggressive with those over in Australia, but over here in the States, not really the best move for your car in the way that it's going to keep handling. You're watching Nick Noggle right now trying to lure in that 28 machine in front of him. Obviously, if Nick Noggle can get around Adam Lancaster, that just secures him some extra placement, an extra point over the other guys he's racing with in the championship. Adam Lancaster, not one of them, but upsetting the party here at the front end of the field. Noggle's going to try to get as many points as possible. Like I said before, I think if we go to Phoenix with that 08 car in the title fight, that is going to be one of those guys to watch. I think that track's going to suit his style pretty well. As Lancaster gets a little bit wide there, no trouble. They stay running pretty smooth. Maybe lets Noggle catch up a little bit.
So this evening was Popsicle Sticks on the season. This time by the front stretch and by the flag stand is Popsicle Sticks here on the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval for the Bluegrass iRacing Series. 2 laps remain, 2 laps to go. John Kinder, I think, visiting that outside wall a tiny bit. We heard a bit of a crunch as Robertson took the 2 to go signal. Things relatively mellow, but these two are starting to go at it more and more. This is a battle to watch. This is for all the marbles, possibly, if you're Nicholas Noggle.
And with the fact that it is 2 to go, you're going to see desperation come out of the number 08, trying to get as many positions as he can. But now, like I talked about earlier, the fact that it was because of Noggle that Lancaster didn't even make it to the round of 16. So I'm believing that maybe Lancaster and
there it is.
There goes that idea. And that's basically from that point on. I think Noggle's almost clinched in through on points where he runs, even though it's going to be very, very close. But that is heartbreak for the number 28, as now he goes nose first into the heartburn turn. You see, he was already loose going into it. He basically had no chance of making the corner with how he wiggled that car onto the third section of the dogleg.
Well, he wiggled going into that first turn right there. He had plenty of pressure from behind from Nick Noggle, and he was going in kind of late there. Tough break for him. Obviously, that spot's going to get granted to Nicholas Noggle pretty easily, and he's got a pretty far way up from Casey Barlow, so that pretty much secures Nick Noggle a top 5, and that's about all. But for that, we see these guys coming past the white flag. 1 lap to go for Brandon Robertson out front of John Kinder, and John's closed that gap a little bit, but I think that with how much time's left in this race, Brandon Robertson would have to make a mistake up in front of him. But I think this is a great turnaround for John Kinder, too. He's had a lot of races where he hasn't finished at the top end of the board at all, even remotely, lately. So this should, at least, second place may not be a win, but it's a good run for John Kinder.
Gap is narrowing. It's not over just yet. Boy, does it look like it might be as they head into the Redneck roller coaster, but not just yet. It's never over until you exit that final chicane, as we learned in 2018. Wide there over turn 6 for John Kinder, a narrow entry to 7, but hey, Robertson can still make a mistake. A bit sideways there through 8 for the number 2. This is not quite over. Brandon Robertson has got to execute every mile, every foot, every inch of the way back around to the checkered flag. It is the final time around the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval, the final time into the backstretch chicane, possibly the Harrisburg landmines back there. He is going to be good through the chicane, and now he's got one more chicane to go through before this race is his. Oh, what this would mean for Brandon Robertson to get yet another race win, this time on the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. It's looking like he's going to do it, but nothing certain just yet. To the final chicane, and out of turn 17, the day is Brandon Robertson's. Another checkered flag for the driver of the 2. He gets it done, and John Kinder has to settle once more.
And with that is more than likely possibly going to get John Kinder the next round barely on point. You're going to see where that all wraps out, but obviously a win would have pretty much secured the 21 into making the next round. But now we're going to have to rely to see where the points come. And now you're going to look at Nicholas Noggle making his way to take home a top 5. That's possibly going to strengthen his run for the Final 4 as you look further back to the field, as now all the Nathan Maurer can do is just bring it home and hope for the best. But more than likely, with how his race has gone, his chances for a championship is going to end here in Charlotte.
Yeah, that's a tough break for that Simbox Chevy driver. I mean, hey, not a bad turnaround. I mean, coming home second after, running it straight into the wall in turn 1 at one point in this race, that's a pretty good turnaround for the race itself, but definitely not what Nathan Maurer wanted when it comes to the championship. It looks like he's on the outside, and that's, going to end his run for the championship, but nonetheless, still could come out at Phoenix and do pretty well. But props to this guy. Brandon Robertson absolutely ran a stellar race, was patient with that car, wasn't too aggressive at the beginning when John Kinder was going for those stage points. He knew he had to be smart with that 2 machine, and he waited for the right time, pulled that undercut very well in that final pit stop cycle, and when the time came to it, he kept control of those tires and managed that car very well to get to the end, not have any trouble from John Kinder behind. Well deserved for this win. Brandon Robertson wins a lot of races at a lot of different tracks here in the Bluegrass iRacing series.
It's another race victory for the driver of the 2-car to add on to so many more so far this season. Brandon Robertson has been excellent every step of the way. Quite simply, this is his championship to lose. Phoenix, I think, has to belong to Brandon Robertson, and it's up to him whether or not he's going to hold on to it, or if he might possibly lose it next week to the 3 that make it along with him. I think it's safe to say Matt Grenier, his teammate, will fight him for a championship next week. We'll wait to see how everything else settles out before we call anything, because it's all going to be a little bit too close to call. But Brandon Robertson going to do some donuts. This is a new way to celebrate, but I don't hate it. Brandon Robertson going to celebrate here at Charlotte. We will take a step aside. We'll be right back to you with post-race interviews with the entire top 3.
After months of quarantine, we're all interested in how we can become our best self. The team at Permanent Makeup and Cryo is here to help you get the flawless makeup look every day without the extra effort or time. When it comes to your appearance, you deserve the best care that money can buy.
Sound Art is a product that is a speaker and it's art. We combine it together and we call it Sound Art. What makes it so unique that any picture can be your speaker? Sound Art gives you the high quality sound without the ugly speaker. This isn't a picture with a speaker, the picture is the speaker. Just imagine your wedding picture uploaded onto a canvas and now it's speaking 10,000 tunes. I mean, it's a very cool concept. What we like so much about it that you can take anything that means something very special to you, upload it on the canvas, have it hanging up in your room, your balcony, wherever you want to put it, and now it's a speaker. I mean, how cool is that? It's something that we have that and no one has. No one has this product. It's just a great gift to give anybody. It's just a neat concept. Around here we say, art never sounded so good.
Welcome back to Charlotte Motor Speedway. 55 laps later, we have not only a race winner, but a championship favorite once more. Brandon Robertson just continues to lay a punishing on this Bluegrass iRacing Series field. I think, again, it's very easy to say that this is certainly his championship to either win in 1 week's time at Phoenix Raceway or give away to the next highest bidder in 1 week's time at Phoenix Raceway. I want to preface everything that goes on in this post-race show by saying points reset. We're at 0 apiece for Phoenix next week, unlike the previous few races of the playoffs, which means the 4 drivers that we announce at some point within this post-race show as moving on to Phoenix, it's up to them. The highest finisher wins the championship here in the Bluegrass iRacing Series. Let's talk to one guy that we know will be moving on. It's Brandon Robertson with the race win this evening, which I think is no surprise at this point. Brandon, not necessarily that dominating win that we've seen you get time and time again, but certainly you were in the conversation all night long, but a couple of mistakes. How hard was it to keep up with John Kinder?
Oh, that was one of the best battles I've ever had. I know last year, Justin Winters and I had a similar battle, but the outcome was different. So, man, it was a tough battle. I'm so excited about this one, and John was real tough.
Certainly hard earned. The fact that we were talking about you all night long, yet you only led 15 of these 55 laps because John Kinder led almost all of the other 40. Certainly proves that it was even that much more hard fought. But hey, you come in this evening pretty much just having to start this race in order to move on to Phoenix. You're on to Phoenix. You're going to be fighting for a championship next week, and I'm going to reiterate what I've already said a couple of times this evening. It's your championship to lose. How do you win it?
Just practice. You don't make any mistakes when it comes down to pit strategy. I think Phoenix will be a long green flag run, and I think it's just about executing pit strategies and not making the big mistakes and being there for the last lap, because that's the only one that pays, right?
Absolutely. Now, actually, you mentioned mistakes. What happened tonight? We saw a couple of little mistakes out of you, and then you were able to keep things together in the second stage. What happened in stage 1, and what did you change about the way you were driving?
Stage 1 was I ended up hitting the wall coming out onto the turn 1 again. I did that the last race here at the Roval. That wall kind of sneaks up on you, and I think I hit a few turtles. Got airborne one time. I followed John in tight, and I just couldn't see over his car and hit the turtle, and it gave me a 1x or a 2x. But the first stint there was extremely slippery. The second one, it wasn't as bad, but it was just definitely a battle. I really enjoyed it.
So congratulations this evening. You get yet another race win. Who do you have to thank? Who do you have to shout out? Who makes it happen for you?
Just shout out to Dave Brackett. I know he worked a lot on this, and I'm looking here, and I think he got the lowest amount of incident points, so he certainly kept it on the track, and that's a great run for Dave. And shout out to Team New England. They certainly helped me talk through strategies and stuff. So it's been great working with them this year.
So go into Phoenix easily, the championship favorite. Brandon will be talking to you next week, I'm sure. Best of luck to you, and we'll see you in Phoenix.
Hey, thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Brandon Robertson collects yet another race win. We'll see how he does under the sun in 1 week's time. We'll also see how this guy does in 1 week's time. Noah, take it away.
Well, John, another heartbreaking loss comes your way at your home track after a dominating performance top to bottom. What was it like those last few laps, having to take it home and finish second here tonight?
Yeah, I probably should have let Brandon take the lead so I could plan the undercut. I knew that was going to be an issue, like when you pit and being the leader, you kind of sit and duck. Brandon was really fast. Hats off to him. It was kind of tit for tat the whole time. It was pretty awesome racing, though.
And it was pretty awesome racing. You guys put on one heck of a show for a 2-car fight. Well, also keeping that in mind, you came out, like you saw, out of the stage break unofficially, from what our points say, you were in a three-way tie for the final championship spot, now finishing second. That should give you a little bit of a comfort now with your possibilities of making that final four. If that is the case, what are your emotions right now as you wait to decide whether or not you're going to be racing next week for a championship, or if you're going to be racing next week just to try and get a win?
Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty tight on the points. I pretty much felt like I was in a must-win situation. Put myself behind at Bristol and Talladega. So, but I mean, hey, we ran hard all season. I've been the bridesmaid all year. So maybe if we get into the Final Four, we can go win Phoenix.
And if this is in case your final stop on the road to the championship, just give us a rundown of the season and your thoughts leading up to this moment right now as you wait for the official standings to come out.
Yeah, I mean, I made a lot of mistakes, and there was stuff that was out of my control, but all in all, felt like I was pretty competitive all season, and we'll figure out how to put it in a victory lane. Can't really complain. It's been a good season.
All right, and before I let you go here to enjoy the rest of the night as you wait for the Final Four to be revealed, who do you have to thank for how your season has gone up to this point and looking forward next week to Phoenix?
Obviously, Rims 1, Ghostface Brewery. Special shout out to Adam Lancaster, Casey Barlow, Justin, Just Winners, and Ronnie Shirk. We all work really well together. And then I also like to give a big shout out to Alex Huffman for the great paints that he gives us.
All right, well, congratulations on the runner-up finish. I know it's not the finish that you wanted, but a strong points in the end, and hopefully we get to see you with that white name rail going into next week at Phoenix as you hopefully fight for a championship.
I appreciate you guys. Appreciate what you do.
All right, that's going to be your runner-up here tonight, Mr. John Kender, and we'll wrap it out by giving your third-place finisher, Matt Grenier, over to the one and only Joe O'Donoghue.
Yeah, so we pull in Matt Grenier. This is Joe Donohue with PitStop TV. Do you got a copy?
Yeah, I got you, Joe. How's it going?
Well, it's going pretty good. It seems like it went pretty well for you as well. You had that incident early, but, adapt and overcome. You come home in the top 3.
Yeah, I was pretty geared up. I was happy with my qualifying position. I put in a lot of laps this week, and we go into turn 1, and I'm facing backwards watching everyone go by me, and my heart just sunk. And the only thing I could really do there was just rely on all the laps that I put in and just drive my heart out. And I think I drove my way back up to about 7th to the stage break, and then, then we just pushed forward from there.
Yeah, so I know that we've talked before about the skill of that guy behind the number 15's steering wheel at this track before. The strategy maybe, or what the motivation was to get you all the way back up to 3rd place by the time stage 2 got underway again.
Yeah, I didn't, I put in a lot of hard work this week, and I didn't want to see it go to waste, and I just, put my foot to the floor and drove my heart out to drive back up there, and thankfully, it worked out. I was hoping to get a couple more guys, but by the time I was at the end of that run, I had just used up everything coming into the stage break.
Well, hey, it worked out well for you. We've got unofficial scores, so not hold me to it perfectly, but unofficial scores put you pretty well into the Phoenix Championship 4. So what's your outlook next week? I mean, obviously Phoenix is a very different racetrack than the Roval. Obviously you're going to put some practice in, but what are you looking at going into that final race of this season?
Consistency and, hitting my mark, saving my tires, I think is going to be crucial. Brandon's going to be strong. I'm not sure who else is going to make it, but I know whoever the other 4 are going to be strong, and there are certainly some guys that may not make it that are certainly going to give us a run. I don't think they're just going to lay down. There's still pride at stake and all that stuff, so I expect it to be a tough race, and we're going to put our heads down like always and turn a bunch of laps and just get better between now and next week.
Absolutely great strategy move for you there. So before we let you go to celebrate this win and, get ready for Phoenix, who do you have to thank? And is there anybody else you'd like to shout out here on the broadcast before we set you free?
Yeah, I just got to thank Main Dump Runners for coming on board. good friend of mine sponsored the car, so I'm happy to have his name on there. Got to thank Team New England as always. Can't do it without those guys. And as always, got to thank my parents, my girlfriend, my buddy Eric at home.
Absolutely. I will mention I thoroughly enjoyed the little blue highlights on your car tonight. Looked very sleek and fast. And hey, you kept it fast, got home in 3rd place. Congratulations, Matt. Celebrate this one and get on that grind for Phoenix.
Will do. Thanks a lot.
And thank you too, sir. There you go, Matt Grenier, your final podium finisher there, Andrew, and all those guys, got to get on that grind, get ready for Phoenix, but the results looked pretty well for him tonight.
Results are looking pretty good for a lot of guys, not so great for others. Let's run through our race results this evening, then I'll tell you how things are looking. The top 6 going to be Brandon Robertson, John Kinder, Matt Grenier. Of course, we talked to all 3 of them. Casey Barlow, just a few points out of a really crucial points-paying position. Nicholas Noggle got one of those points-paying positions very, very late. That's going to play into what I'm going to talk about shortly. Lancaster going to take that 6th place spot after giving it up to Nicholas Noggle.
Nathan Maurer, after nosing it into the turn 1 wall, rebounds to a 7th place position, but with all those drivers in front of him being playoff contenders, that is going to be a very tough hill to climb. Wyatt Brackett as well, finishing 8th. 9th is going to go to David Brackett, with the 10th place going to Ryan Kendall, finishing 1 lap down, obviously in a very rough spot, finishing 8th out of the top 8. Rounding out in your 11th place position here tonight is given number 9 of Bryce Hunter, as Michael Briston in the 71 will round out in 12th here tonight.
You look at the back end of your field, you've got Ed Osborne in that 42 car finishing 10 laps down, and then 14th right behind him will be the 46 of Nick Mills. Ryan Terry brings it home in 15th, 15 laps behind the leaders, and Jack Bauer in 16th, 24 laps down. Dylan Butler rounded out tonight in 17th, a little premature, as did Ryan Smith, the Hoosier, finishing in 18th spot.
So with results read, that's how the 18 cars finished this evening. We can tell you who's moving on. Now first, to kind of illustrate some of these points, I want to take a look back at the points coming into this evening. These very, very important, of course. Robertson comes in with a massive gap to everybody behind. We knew that. We knew he would be just about safe. And in fact, he came in with, it looks like, just enough points to be safe from the start of the race. All he had to do was make the start with only 18 cars in attendance. However, things got more complicated for guys like Matt Grenier, Ryan Kendall, Nicholas Noggle, so on and so forth through those blue names. Matt Grenier, he's going to pick up 4 points in the stage. He's going to take 3rd place honors with a lap led. That's enough to move him on. A very, very good race this evening for Matt. Despite the lap 1, turn 1 issues, he comes back, bounces back, has a great evening. Ryan Kendall, I was a believer in this guy, and I say unfortunately for me, but unfortunately for him. This guy was so good all season long, guys. He came on mid-season and suddenly looked like a guy to contend for a championship, maybe be an underdog pick next week. Unfortunately, he is not going to make the cut. No stage points, finishing 10th this evening, just not going to cut it. He's the only playoff driver that does not score stage points in the first half of this race. And unfortunately, he has been voted off the island, if you will, by the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. He's going home. Obviously, he'll be racing next week at Phoenix, but with no chance at the championship. The best he can finish now is 5th place. They move on down to, well, Nicholas Noggle is next up. We can tell you, Nicholas Noggle, he's in a 2-way tie with another driver coming up. And we'll get to Casey Barlow first. Actually, you know what? We'll tell you. Wyatt Brackett does not make it. Just like he came in 7th, he's going to stay 7th, unfortunately, with John Kinder just completely dusting the 33 car and Casey Barlow getting just enough points. It's just not going to work out for Wyatt this evening. Also had very high hopes for the 33 car. He is not going to advance. We knew just about that Nathan Maurer, unfortunately, was going to be out as well. And unfortunately, the hill was just too much for him to climb. And, well, he's on the outside looking in and will not race for a championship next week. This leaves 3 drivers, guys. This is building up some suspense, right? Nicholas Noggle, Casey Barlow, John Kinder. The 3 guys that we told you were going to tie after stage number 1. There was actually a small clerical error, and Nicholas Noggle actually had an extra point that we had not accounted for, so he was actually 1 point ahead of or I guess 1 point further ahead, because actually it was Kendall that was in that tie, my bad. Regardless, Noggle actually had an extra couple of points. When it's all said and done, he's going to maintain those extra couple of points to one guy. And obviously John Kinder going out there, winning stage 1, nearly winning the race, is going to surpass Nicholas Noggle and Casey Barlow. And unfortunately, it's just not going to be enough for the driver of the 51. And I mean, they only finished one position different on the racetrack, and actually Barlow was able to help himself out a little bit there at the end, finishing one spot ahead of Nicholas Noggle, but it's just not enough. And due to the 3 extra stage points that Noggle got, due to the 1 point that he had coming in, and the 1 bonus point he got for leading a lap, it's going to be a 3-point gap from Nicholas Noggle to Casey Barlow to knock Casey Barlow out of the final 4. And your 4 are Brandon Robertson, Matt Grenier, Nicholas Noggle, and John Kinder. John Kinder squeaks through, earns enough points in this round to just barely keep himself on the good side. And in fact, I mentioned a tie earlier on. Nicholas Noggle, John Kinder leave Charlotte tied in the points. But of course, when we go into Phoenix in 1 week's time, Noah, that's all going to change. Points are wiped. It's the highest finisher among those 4 that wins the championship.
Yeah, we talked about it starting in here tonight, that this was going to be the race that would knock a lot of big-name drivers out of there. And you said it right there, Kendall, Brackett, Maurer, and Barlow, 4 drivers being knocked out. Barlow being a driver that I would honestly say is one of the more surprising drivers to get knocked out with how strong of a season he's had in his debut. Not being able to capitalize on that due more likely to that lap 1 incident that knocked him all the way to the back of the field. He was able to rebound and get some stage points, but sadly with how fast the rest of the field was, the 5th place finish that he got, which is not going to be enough to amount a charge to get into that top 4. And now he's going to go into next week having to watch those drivers race for a championship rather than being one of the drivers that do race for a championship.
Yeah, but at the same time, props to those guys getting in. I mean, we raced this whole season. There's a lot of really competitive guys out here winning races. A lot of guys won races that obviously didn't get a chance to compete in tonight's race to even make it to Phoenix. And then, we have to send a couple home if we're going to have 4 at Phoenix. But props to Brandon, props to Nick, props to Matt, props to John. You got to put on a good race week in, week out if you want to be able to compete up there. I think, John Kinder's had a lot of ups and downs this season. He could very much be on a redemption tour at Phoenix, could very well pull the upset, take that win, and finally break through. Grenier could pull it out of the hat too. Matt Grenier is a very strong driver in this series. He broke through with his first win this season as well. Nick Noggle, I'm watching Nick Noggle at Phoenix. I think the track suits his style. And Brandon Robertson. I mean, Brandon's tough to beat anywhere we go in this series. So, we got 4 really great drivers in that final championship 4 rundown. And what more? I'm just counting down to Phoenix next week.
What's also interesting to me as somebody who looks for patterns, just looks for these little coincidences, the 4 low numbers of these 8 move on, the 4 high numbers are kicked out and are sent home next week. But Brandon Robertson, Nicholas Noggle, Matt Grenier, and John Kinder are your final 4 next week for the Bluegrass iRacing Series season finale from Phoenix Raceway. Of course, you can watch such a race here on PitStop TV. Why wouldn't you? But hey, before we close this thing out, before we say goodbye from Charlotte Motor Speedway, I gotta ask you guys, final thoughts. We know the final 4. We know the 4 that are out. So now we know the 12 that are fighting for 5th. But again, more importantly, we know the final 4. We know who's fighting for a championship, and we know who's been the favorite all season long. How does it shake down at Phoenix?
I honestly would. Any 4 of these guys can really win that championship. Obviously, Robertson's going to go in there the heavy favorite to win this championship with just how strong of a season. Every single race, he has been knocking on the door and has always been a driver we talked about running up there in the top 10 or the top 5 or for the top 2. So Robertson, obviously the heavy favorite. Kinder, always a dark horse. He's obviously one of the favorites as well, but just has struggled to get that win. And now knowing that he will move on to that final 4, this is honestly going to be the race where I think he has nothing to lose. It's either you bring home the championship or you bring home the steering wheel. It's really the last race of the season. It is really everything's on the line. And if you're going to go for that championship, you're going to race your heart out. That's the race you want to do. Same for Nicholas Noggle, a guy that has always wanted to watch out for. I would honestly say he's my number 1 key to watch for, because while obviously the 2 favorites are going to be Kinder and Robertson, Noggle is always a guy that you're going to want to look in your mirror, because if that 08 Toyota is in your mirror, then you're going to have a very hard time on your hands trying to tackle that Phoenix Raceway going on next week.
Yeah, I think Noah hit the nail on the head right there. I think, emotions are going to come out at Phoenix. I think aggression is going to come out at Phoenix. This whole season could be embodied by one race. So obviously those guys are going to put in a ton of practice and a ton of effort to make sure they have their cars underneath them and they're ready to go when we get set for that green flag at Phoenix. I thought tonight was a pretty good race, though. A lot of guys kept their nose clean. Not too many major incidents, a couple small ones here and there, and even those guys were able to rebound off of those. The Roval put up some pretty good racing. I think the field did a great job with the course tonight, proved they were ready to go, and hey, more of the same. And Phoenix is a completely different animal, but I'll be looking forward to it.
I think the most important thing out of all of this, guys, is the fact that we can talk about each 4 of these drivers moving on as deserving champions. And that's not to take anything away from anybody else in the 16 that we had beginning at Bristol, but you do want to see the cream rise to the top, rather. Of course, it's a bit of an interesting situation when you have somebody like in 2014 of the NASCAR Cup Series. Ryan Newman made it to the Final Four without winning a race. Now, it's a bit different when you have a 36 race season and a 16 race season, but regardless, I think these 4 are very deserving drivers. They have been just about the top of the series, if not the top of the series, since we unloaded at Daytona. For Robertson, for Noggle, for Grenier, and for Kinder, I think this is very deserving. I think this fits the bill for what we've seen all season long, and I think we're talking about the right 4 guys when it comes down to battling for a championship in 1 week at Phoenix Raceway. So again, make sure you tune back in a week, but this does it. This cuts it tonight here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway for our coverage of the Bluegrass iRacing Series. PitStop TV, thanks you for tuning in and joining us for tonight's action, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. PitStop TV, of course, stays active weekly, and you can catch a variety of racing throughout the coming days. On the far side of the weekend, we rejoin Cross Series League Racing, say that 5 times fast, for their 7th round of their season as they begin a 2-week run with the 360 sprint cars at Eldora and USA. And Monday, we run through the rounds again with our weekly schedule. First with Monday night BRP iRacing Series action from Fairbury American Legion Speedway, then with a Tuesday evening finale for the Operation E Motorsport iRacing League presented by Recaro Vailey Racing at Sebring International Raceway. Wednesday continues the championship crowning theme as the Bluegrass iRacing Series rejoins us, this time from the Sonoran Desert in Arizona and Avondale's Phoenix Raceway as the series finally comes to its precipice, finishing the season under the sun. Make sure to follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/PitStopTV, on Twitter at PitStopTV_, on Twitch at www.twitch.tv/pit_stop_TV, and on YouTube at www.youtube.com/c/PitStopTV1. For all of PitStop TV, Noah Carmichael and Joe Donahue with me on the mic this evening, Trey Shuttlesworth on our social media coverage, as per usual it seems like on these Wednesday evenings. My name is Andrew Cardinale IV, and we will see you next time. Have a great night, and make sure to tune in 1 week at Phoenix Raceway, a St. Patty's Day adventure down in the desert. It's going to be a lot of fun.